Chapter 2100. The safest place to stay in Sin City was the Seckless Cultivator Alliance's base, or the inn that was next to the Seckless Cultivator Alliance. Of course, in comparison, the inn was much safer. The strength of the Seckless Cultivator Alliances varied. If one joined a weak alliance, one would not be safe even if they hid in their base. But an inn was different. Although there were many inns in Sin City, there were not many of them. At the very least, not all Seckless Cultivator Alliances had the ability to open an inn to make a profit. Even if third-rate Seckless Alliances like the Ground Axe Alliance and the Black Crow Alliance opened inns, not many guests would dare to stay there since they were not guaranteed their safety. Even the leader of such third-rate Seckless Cultivator Alliances was only at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage. The deputy leaders and their subordinates were even weaker. Even if such a Seckless Cultivator Alliance opened an inn, it would only be a threat if the leader was there. However, was it possible for the leader to stay in an inn all the time? The Mighty Tyrannical Alliance was not something Seckless Cultivator Alliances such as the Ground Axe Alliance and the Black Crow Alliance could compare to. The Mighty Tyrannical Alliance was one of the top Seckless Cultivator Alliances in Sin City. It was said that the leader of the Mighty Tyrannical Alliance was a powerhouse at the fifth form of the Saint Celestial stage. Even the leader of the Mighty Tyrannical Alliance who stayed in the Declined Guest Inn was at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage. For this reason, even if Yabuji, the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance, barged into the Declined Guest Inn, he might not be able to get anything out of it. In fact, he might even offend the Mighty Tyrannical Alliance. It seems like I can only wait for him to leave the Declined Guest Inn. Once he leaves the inn, the powerhouses from the Mighty Tyrannical Alliance won't be able to protect him anymore. In the end, Yao Buji could only wait. Apart from that, he had no other choice. I don't believe that you can keep hiding in the inn and not come out, Yao Buji said in a deep voice. His eyes were as cold as a knife. Ever since Yao Buji made up his mind, more and more people had stopped and loitered around the inn. Every once in a while, a nude face would appear among these people. These people were the members of the Ground Axe Alliance that Yao Buji had sent out to monitor the situation. They had been loitering around the Xiekalai Inn in order to keep an eye on Duan Lingtian. Once they discovered that Duan Lingtian had left, they would immediately track him down and report back to the Ground Axe Alliance. At this moment, Duan Lingtian was unaware that he had been targeted by the Ground Axe Alliance. However, as soon as he entered the guest room, he took a look at his loot and took out the 2 spatial rings from the members of the Ground Axe Alliance and the burly man from the Black Crow Alliance. Although it's not a great harvest, it's still not bad. A satisfied smile appeared on Duan Lingtian's face when he saw the Saint Stones and the 3 men's spatial rings. This Sin City is really a perfect place for me to improve my innate spiritual root. In the City of Sin, there were plenty of people who hurt and killed people over a disagreement. The so-called evildoers accounted for more than half of the total population. Duan Lingtian did not feel guilty about snatching and devouring these people's innate spiritual roots. This spatial ring, it seems to belong to the old man whom the 2 men from the Ground Axe Alliance were chasing. Soon after, Duan Lingtian saw a spatial ring in one of the Ground Axe Alliance's spatial rings. The spatial ring looked familiar. It did not take long before he recalled where he had seen this spatial ring. This spatial ring belonged to the old man who was being chased by the 2 men from the Ground Axe Alliance outside the City of Sin. The 2 men from the Ground Axe Alliance had chased after the old man for this spatial ring. Could it be that there's a treasure in it? Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up when he thought of this. At the same time, he dripped his blood on the ownerless spatial ring to establish ownership over it. After inspecting it for a while, his eyes lit up. Duan Lingtian only glanced at the other items in the spatial ring. He did not pay much attention to them. In the end, Duan Lingtian's eyes landed on a sword lying quietly in the spatial ring. The sword looked simple and unadorned, but it gave Duan Lingtian a different feeling. As a Saint Inscription Master who specialized in the strange inscription Dao, Duan Lingtian had a keen sense of smell when it came to Saint Inscriptions. In this aspect, he was much better than ordinary Saint Inscription Masters. Is this 1,000 inscriptions Saint Sword? After a brief inspection, Duan Lingtian confirmed the seemingly simple sword was indeed a 1,000 inscriptions saint sword. It seems like the two men from the Ground Axe Alliance are after this 1,000 inscriptions saint sword. After looking through the other things in the old man's spatial ring, Duan Lingtian did not find anything valuable. Therefore, he quickly confirmed this. However, with that old man's strength, I wonder where he got this 1,000 inscriptions saint sword from. Also, how did the two men from the Ground Axe Alliance know the old man has a 1,000 inscriptions saint sword? Duan Lingtian was puzzled. Duan Lingtian was no longer the hothead he was when he had just arrived in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. After spending some time in the Zoroastrianism, he had learned a lot about the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. This included the 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon. A 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon was a top-notch treasure in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. In the Zoroastrianism, the value of a 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon was as high as 10 million contribution points. In the Zoroastrianism, apart from the high-ranking officials who were Golden Flame Elders and above, who possessed a 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon, only a few Silver Flame Elders possessed a 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon. Based on this, one could see how precious a 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon was. However, such a precious 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon had fallen into the hands of an old man at the quintessential saint stage before it was snatched away by two men from the Ground Axe Alliance who were also at the quintessential saint stage. If the two men from the Ground Axe Alliance did not provoke him, he would not have obtained the 1,000 inscriptions saint sword. In that case, I should thank them for provoking me and trying to kill me. When Duan Lingtian thought about this, he could not help but laugh. This was probably what they meant by the saying, "Nothing is certain in the world." Duan Lingtian no longer thought about how the 1,000 inscriptions saint sword ended up in the hands of an old man at the quintessential saint stage. Since the 1,000 inscriptions saint sword had fallen into his hands, it was already his. With this 1,000 inscriptions saint sword, the 100 inscriptions saint sword can no longer be used. I can use this 1,000 inscriptions saint sword in the future. As for the Jasper Celestial Sword, I won't use it unless I have to. When Duan Lingtian thought about this, he smiled in satisfaction. Although it's just a 1,000 inscriptions saint sword, it'll still attract unwanted attention. The most important thing now is for me to raise my strength. As long as I'm strong enough to wield the 1,000 inscriptions saint sword, nobody will dare to covet it. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Duan Lingtian did as he was told. With just a thought, he entered the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda and began to cultivate 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique. As soon as Duan Lingtian circulated his cultivation method, the heaven and earth spirit energy surged into his body as though it was free. During this process, Duan Lingtian discovered his cultivation speed was much faster than before. Duan Lingtian knew this very well. After all, his innate spiritual root was no longer the same as before. He was only half a step away from attaining an indigo innate spiritual root. At this rate, I'll definitely be able to break through to the peak of the exemplary saint stage in 2 months. Duan Lingtian made a conservative estimate when he sensed his cultivation speed. He was certain his cultivation base would be able to break through to the peak of the exemplary saint stage in 2 months. Once his cultivation base had broken through to the peak of the exemplary saint stage, his strength would increase as well. As time continued to pass, Duan Lingtian calmed himself down and began to cultivate. His strength continued to increase. Initially, it was only a slight increase. However, as time passed, the increase became clearer and more obvious. Zoroastrianism in the Western region. No. In one of the floating islands around the Saint Island in the Saint Land of Zoroastrianism, a hysterical and tragic cry suddenly rang in the air. This roar was like the roar of a wild beast, but it was also like a thunderclap. It was so shocking that several people appeared in the air above the nearby small floating islands. It's senior brother Bu Hong's voice. The few people who appeared above the floating islands were true disciples of Zoroastrianism. The floating islands they were standing on were also the cultivation grounds of true disciples of Zoroastrianism. Now, several true disciples were looking at the small floating island from which the voice came, and they were stunned. This was because they knew who the owner of the floating island was. It was none other than Buhong, the person who was currently ranked third on the true ranking of Zoroastrianism. Although Buhong had been defeated by Duan Lingtian, a prodigy who had recently risen to prominence in Zoroastrianism, it was only because Duan Lingtian was too monstrous. It was not because Buhong was weak. For this reason, Buhong was still a lofty existence in the eyes of the true disciples of Zoroastrianism. However, today, Buhong had lost his composure and shouted. The few true disciples who lived nearby were at a loss. What's wrong with senior brother Buhong? I don't know. Ever since he was defeated by senior brother Duan Lingtian, I've never heard of him leaving his cultivation grounds. I didn't expect him to leave so suddenly today. Based on his voice, it seems like he's suffered a huge blow. Could it be that he's still traumatized by being defeated by senior brother Duan Lingtian and can't extricate himself? That's possible. The true disciples discussed among themselves as though no one was around. In the end, they reached a consensus that Buhong was still unable to accept the fact that he was defeated by Duan Lingtian. Chapter 2101. No, this is impossible. How? How can my cultivation speed be so slow? How is this possible? In one of the rooms on the floating island, Buhong was lying limply on the ground. His eyes were glazed over, and his face was pale as he muttered to himself. He seemed to have lost his mind and was in a wretched state. He looked like a cripple. Not long ago, he was defeated by Duan Lingtian, the monstrous prodigy from the Zoroastrianism. Buhong was filled with grief and indignation. He wanted to work harder in his cultivation to reach a higher level. Duan Lingtian had defeated him and knocked him out in front of everyone. This was a great humiliation to him. He swore he would take revenge for this. He would kill Duan Lingtian in the Palace of Death and use Duan Lingtian's blood to wash away the humiliation he had suffered. However, just as Buhong was about to cultivate, he discovered he could no longer sense the heaven and earth spirit energy. Soon after some effort, although he could sense the heaven and earth spirit chi again, he found that the heaven and earth spirit chi he sensed was very weak. Moreover, the speed at which he absorbed the heaven and earth spirit energy was so slow that it was as slow as a snail. I'm afraid his cultivation speed is even worse than those mediocre people who possess red innate spiritual roots. This was what Buhong thought at that time. Initially, Buhong thought the slow speed at which he sensed the heaven and earth spirit energy was due to the aftereffects of being knocked out by Duan Lingtian. For this reason, he thought he would be able to recover in a few days. However, as the days passed, everything remained the same. Buhong's heart sank day by day. At this moment, Buhong finally realized a problem. He was crippled. He was completely crippled. What did Duan Lingtian do to me? What did he do to me? Buhong finally regained some of his vitality. However, his eyes were cold and filled with hatred. It was as though he wanted to tear Duan Lingtian into pieces. Fine, master. Let's go find master. After taking a deep breath, Buhong finally remembered his master, the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum of Zoroastrianism. Following that, the fire worship sect's true disciples who were alarmed by Buhong's roar also saw him leaving his residence. In just a blink of an eye, he disappeared from their sight. However, they could still vaguely grasp Buhong's whereabouts. Senior brother Buhong seems to be heading in the direction of the Azure Dragon Sanctum. Soon, a core disciple recovered from his shock and exclaimed in surprise. Is he planning to look for his master? Another true disciple guessed. Is he going to find his master to avenge him? Another true disciple shook his head as he looked at Buhong's back that was about to disappear. A trace of disdain flashed in his eyes. Despite being a direct disciple as well, after being defeated, the other party did not show any signs of improvement. Instead, he complained to his elders and complained to them. Such actions were despicable. There were rules in Zoroastrianism. Saint Land disciples, whether they were direct disciples or elite disciples, were not allowed to enter the four symbol sanctums without the permission of the sanctum leaders. Those who violated the rules would be severely punished. However, for some people, this rule existed in name only. These people were the direct disciples of the sanctum leaders of the four symbol sanctums. Even if the direct disciples of the sanctum leaders of the four symbol sanctums trespassed without prior notice, the sanctum leaders of the sanctums would definitely protect them since they were their masters. As the direct disciple of the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum, Bu Hong, naturally, had this privilege as well. After leaving the saint land of Zoroastrianism and entering the Azure Dragon Sanctum, Bu Hong easily entered the cultivation place of the high-ranking officials in the Azure Dragon Sanctum. Similar to the cultivation place of the Black Turtle Sanctum and the other three sanctums, the cultivation place of the high-ranking officials in the Azure Dragon Sanctum was segregated into a quiet area. This was also the forbidden area of the Azure Dragon Sanctum. Bu Hong's intrusion had alerted one of the Azure Dragon Sanctum's Silver Flame Elders. Initially, he thought it was someone who dared to trespass. However, when he saw it was Bu Hong, the gloomy expression on his face disappeared and was replaced by a flattering smile. Bu Hong was the direct disciple of the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum. Moreover, he was the eldest direct disciple. With Bu Hong's monstrous innate talent, he would definitely surpass the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum in the future. Even if he did not become the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, he would definitely become a vice sect leader. Such a person was worth it for him to try his best to curry favor with. However, the Azure Dragon Sanctum's Silver Flame Elder soon discovered that Bu Hong was not bothered at all. Bu Hong, who was in a hurry, did not pay any attention to him, and he happened to see Bu Hong's pale and gloomy face. What's going on? Upon seeing this, not only was the Azure Dragon Sanctum's Silver Flame Elder not angry, but he was also puzzled. Bu Hong was the eldest direct disciple of the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum. He was also a prodigy among the younger generation of Zoroastrianism. Why would he lose his composure? Don't tell me it's because of Duan Lingtian again? The Azure Dragon Sanctum's Silver Flame Elder suddenly recalled the incident where Bu Hong was defeated and knocked unconscious a few days ago. After that incident, Bu Hong has been completely silent. Could it be that Duan Lingtian has offended Bu Hong again by coming here to look for Lord Sanctum Leader? The moment the Azure Dragon Sanctum's Silver Flame Elder thought of this, his expression changed. However, that Duan Lingtian is really monstrous. I wonder where he came from. In less than a year after he joined the Zoroastrianism, he has already become the second prodigy among the younger generation of Zoroastrianism. When the Azure Dragon Sanctum's Silver Flame Elder thought of Duan Lingtian, who had risen like a comet in the sect, he was shocked again. Even in the history of Zoroastrianism, Duan Lingtian's rise was unprecedented. Master! Bu Hong hurried from the holy land of Zoroastrianism to the Azure Dragon Sanctum, one of the four symbol sanctums. When he arrived at the entrance of his master's mansion, he greeted his master respectfully. Come in. Soon after, a loud voice resonated from the mansion. Based on the voice alone, one could tell the owner of the voice was a burly man. Apart from being loud and energetic, the voice was also loud and boorish. Bu Hong entered the mansion and walked to the front yard with ease. He stood outside the pavilion in the front yard respectfully. In the pavilion, there was a middle-aged man with a sturdy figure standing there. The muscles all over his body bulged, causing the clothes on his body to appear somewhat tight, as if they were cast from steel. The middle-aged man, who looked like an iron tower, had a determined expression on his face. He had thick eyebrows and thick lips, exuding a majestic aura. He was none other than the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum, Lu Tai. Bang! A loud noise resonated in the air as Bu Hong's body became lighter. He fell to his knees and knelt in front of Lu Tai. Bu Hong, I've embarrassed Master. After kneeling, Bu Hong lowered his head and said in a hoarse voice, Get up. Lu Tai said nonchalantly. His tone was calm, and it was impossible to tell if he was happy or angry. Yes. Bu Hong did not dare to disobey Lu Tai's words. He immediately rose to his feet. However, he bowed and lowered his head as though he was too ashamed to face his master. Based on what happened earlier, I've listened to Yin. Lu Tai's tone was as calm as before as he said nonchalantly, It's not unjust that you were defeated by Duan Lingtian. However, with your innate talent and indigo innate spiritual root, as long as you cultivate diligently, it's only a matter of time before you catch up to Duan Lingtian and wash away the humiliation. At that time, we'll just have to get our revenge. In the end, Lu Tai's tone changed and became much gentler. There was a hint of encouragement in his words. Lu Tai was very satisfied with this direct disciple. If it was not for his good luck, he would not have been able to take Bu Hong as his disciple. Bu Hong possessed an indigo innate spiritual root. With such innate talent, it was more than enough for him to become a direct disciple of a sect leader or a guardian of the fire worship sect or a vice sect leader. Among the Golden Flame elders of Zoroastrianism, he was the only direct disciple who possessed an indigo innate spiritual root. The other Golden Flame elders who had a direct disciple with an indigo innate spiritual root treated him like a treasure. How could he not? Master, I'm afraid I won't have a chance in the future. However, when he heard Lu Tai's hopeful words, Bu Hong's body trembled as if he had been electrocuted. His voice became even more hoarse. At the same time, Bu Hong clenched his fists tightly. The veins on his forehead were throbbing. It was obvious he was extremely agitated. What do you mean by that? Lu Tai's expression darkened when he heard Bu Hong's words. Then, an expression of disappointment appeared on his face. You're resigned to your fate after just one failure? Resigned to my fate? A bitter smile appeared on Bu Hong's face. So what if he did not resign to his fate? With his current cultivation speed, how was he going to seek revenge from Duan Lingtian? The gap between him and Duan Lingtian would only grow bigger and bigger until he could no longer catch up. What's going on? At the same time, Lu Tai also realized that there was something wrong with his first direct disciple. His face immediately turned gloomy. Bu Hong took a deep breath and told Lu Tai everything that had happened. He did not dare to hide anything from Lu Tai. If that's the case, your talent seems to have vanished into thin air overnight? Lu Tai's expression changed drastically as he said, I'll use my divine consciousness to check the innate spiritual root in the depth of your soul. Don't resist. Chapter 2102. How's this possible? After probing with his divine sense, Lu Tai felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His pupils suddenly shrank, and his face was filled with shock. At the same time, he cried out in disbelief. Master! Bu Hong was shocked when he heard Lu Tai's words. Am my innate spiritual root? Is there something wrong with my innate spiritual root? If there was something wrong with his innate spiritual root, it was understandable that his cultivation speed was so slow. The only thing he was concerned about was his innate spiritual root. He wanted to know if there was a way to recover his innate spiritual root. If he could recover his innate spiritual root, he would be able to regain his innate spiritual root and regain his cultivation speed. At that time, he would still be a genius with an indigo innate spiritual root in Zoroastrianism. As long as he was given enough time, he might be able to kill Duan Lingtian in the future to wash away the humiliation he had received from Duan Lingtian. There's nothing wrong with your innate spiritual root. When Lu Tai heard Bu Hong's question, he shook his head in a daze. Bu Hong's eyes lit up when he saw this. There's nothing wrong with my innate spiritual root? In his opinion, there was nothing wrong with his innate spiritual root. As long as there was nothing wrong with his innate spiritual root, no matter what caused his cultivation speed to slow down, there would definitely be a way to solve this problem. Instantly, he let out a sigh of relief. There's nothing wrong with your innate spiritual root. Lu Tai hesitated for a moment before he finally revealed the truth in a deep voice. It's because your innate spiritual root is gone. Your innate spiritual root is gone. When Bu Hong heard Lu Tai's words, it was like a bolt from the blue. He was completely stupefied and collapsed to the ground with a look of despair on his face. Although he was in despair earlier, he still held on to the hope that he would be lucky. But now, Lu Tai's words were like a death sentence to his innate talent. Since his innate spiritual root was gone, what talent did he have left? How could this be? Bu Hong was in complete despair. Duan, Ling, Tian. At this moment, Bu Hong heard his master, Lu Tai, roar. This was the first time he had heard his master speak in such an angry tone. Hong don't worry. I'll definitely avenge you. Lu Tai solemnly swore to Bu Hong with a cold glint in his eyes that was as sharp as a knife. Master, why you mean the loss of my innate spiritual root has something to do with Duan Lingtian? While feeling despair, Bu Hong also heard something from Lu Tai's words. It must have something to do with him. Lu Tai said coldly, when Duan Lingtian was still in the Black Turtle Sanctum, Lian, the Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame Elder, brought his direct disciple, Gu Chun, to denounce him. He was the one who destroyed Gu Chun's innate spiritual root. At that time, nobody, including me, believed Duan Lingtian had such a technique. After all, those below the Saint Celestial stage wouldn't be able to sense another person's innate spiritual root with their divine consciousness. Even if a powerhouse at the Saint Celestial stage or above could sense another person's innate spiritual root, they wouldn't be able to destroy another person's innate spiritual root without damaging their soul. Lian and Gu Chun didn't have any evidence. Moreover, Gu Chun wasn't sure if Duan Lingtian was the one who destroyed his innate spiritual root. For this reason, he didn't dare to swear on the lightning penalty oath. For this reason, this matter was left unsettled in the end. Initially, I thought this was just a farce. I thought Lian and his disciple were slandering Duan Lingtian. However, it seems like Duan Lingtian really knows how to destroy a person's innate spiritual root. Otherwise, how could there be such a coincidence in this world? Did you lose your innate spiritual root after you fought with him as well? Lu Tai's words confirmed Bu Hong's speculation. His speculation was flawless as well. He had destroyed another person's innate spiritual root before me? Upon hearing Lu Tai's words, Bu Hong was certain Duan Lingtian had used the same technique to destroy his innate spiritual root. Honger, I'm avenging you. As for you, you can stay here and wait for the good news. As soon as Lu Tai finished speaking, he disappeared before Bu Hong's eyes without waiting for a reply. When he left, Lu Tai's anger soared to the extreme. Although he had two personal disciples, the one he valued the most was Bu Hong, his eldest personal disciple. Now that Bu Hong had been crippled by someone else, it destroyed the high hopes he had for Bu Hong. At this moment, he wanted nothing more than to kill Duan Lingtian with his own hands to vent his anger. Since Lu Tai was certain Duan Lingtian had destroyed his direct disciple's innate spiritual root, he no longer had any qualms. Whether it was using the soul-searching secret tactic to force Duan Lingtian to submit or using other methods, he was determined to destroy Duan Lingtian. Unfortunately, Lu Tai was destined to fail. Currently, Duan Lingtian was no longer part of Zoroastrianism. Even if he wanted to take revenge on Duan Lingtian, he could only wait for Duan Lingtian to return. However, due to Lu Tai's actions, Lu Tai finally learned about this. Only then did he learn that Duan Lingtian had left the fire worship sect. At the same time, Dong Yuanjin, the vice hall master of the enforcement hall, also received the news. Duan Lingtian has left Zoroastrianism? How's this possible? Dong Yuanjin found it hard to believe. He had ordered people to keep an eye on Duan Lingtian, who had repeatedly humiliated his son, Dong Lin. How could Duan Lingtian have left Zoroastrianism? However, regardless of whether he believed it or not, it was a fact. This was because Lu Tai, the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum, had come to the enforcement hall to accuse Duan Lingtian of destroying Bu Hong's innate spiritual root. The enforcement hall had also sent out their enforcement elders to follow Lu Tai into Duan Lingtian's residence. However, they did not manage to find Duan Lingtian. Moreover, Duan Lingtian was nowhere to be found in Zoroastrianism. With this, it was certain Duan Lingtian had indeed left Zoroastrianism. He had left Zoroastrianism right under Dong Yuanjin's nose. Don't worry, father. Since we're certain Duan Lingtian has destroyed Bu Hong's innate spiritual root, he won't be able to escape punishment as long as he returns. Dong Lin smiled sinisterly. Moreover, I heard from Sanctum Leader Lu that Gu Chun, the direct disciple of Black Turtle Sanctum's Elder Lian, had his innate spiritual root destroyed by Duan Lingtian as well. In that case, he can be sentenced to death. However, Dong Yuanjin suddenly thought of something. He said warily, currently, I'm afraid everyone in the enforcement hall has learned about Duan Lingtian destroying Bu Hong's innate spiritual root. If news of this spreads out and Duan Lingtian, who has left Zoroastrianism, finds out about this, I'm afraid he won't return. As long as Duan Lingtian did not return, the enforcement hall of Zoroastrianism would not convict him of any crime, let alone send powerhouses to kill him. After all, it was impossible for them to convict Duan Lingtian based on the words of Sanctum leader Lu Tai alone. Liner, I'm glad you've thought of this. Dong Yuanjin was relieved when he heard Dong Lin's words. You've thought of this as well. Moreover, you've ordered a lockdown on this news. For this reason, this news won't spread out of the enforcement hall before Duan Lingtian returns. As long as this news doesn't spread out of the enforcement hall, naturally, it won't spread out of the sect. It's impossible for Duan Lingtian to know about this. In the end, Dong Yuanjin's face was filled with confidence. Your wise father. Dong Lin's eyes lit up. An expression of admiration could be seen on his face. Dong Yuanjin could not help but frown. However, I still don't understand how he left Zoroastrianism. Dong Yuanjin found it difficult to accept the fact that Duan Lingtian had left Zoroastrianism under his watch. At this moment, Duan Lingtian, who was in Sin City in the central region, was unaware that a trap had been set in Zoroastrianism. He was not aware that someone had already prepared a trap for him in Zoroastrianism. I've finally made a breakthrough. Just as Duan Lingtian had expected, it only took him 2 months to break through to the peak of the exemplary saint stage. Naturally, the reason he was able to make a breakthrough so quickly in an environment without a soul-gathering formation was mostly due to his innate spiritual root that was close to an indigo innate spiritual root. It was also due to his hard work. I've spent more than 50 days on the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, but only slightly more than 5 days have passed in the outside world. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. I'll spend the next few days comprehending the divine ability. When the room fee is due, I'll leave the inn and look for prey. It's time for my innate spiritual root to transform into an indigo innate spiritual root. Duan Lingtian had already made up his mind about what he would do in the next few days. Naturally, the few days he spent here were the time in the outside world. Compared to 4 days in the outside world, Duan Lingtian could stay in the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda for more than a month. After a month, Duan Lingtian left the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Although Duan Lingtian did not make a breakthrough in the divine ability he comprehended during this period of time, he was becoming more and more familiar with it. He was one step closer to making a breakthrough. After opening the door and walking out, Duan Lingtian had a pleasant expression on his face as he breathed in the fresh air that was filled with the scent of flowers and plants in the courtyard. Soon after, he left the guest room in the courtyard where he had stayed for 9 days and checked out. After checking out, he immediately left the Decline Inn. As soon as he left the inn, Duan Lingtian's sharp senses told him a few pairs of eyes were on him. However, they only lingered on him for a moment before they left. If he was not a weapon specialist who was adept at anti-tracking and anti-reconnaissance in his previous life, he would not have noticed the malicious intent in those eyes even if his cultivation base was high. Chapter 2103. Don't tell me they're targeting me and want to kill me? Duan Lingtian thought to himself. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he no longer cared about it. It would be fine if these people did not provoke him. However, if they really dared to provoke him, he would just devour all of their innate spiritual roots. Currently, his innate spiritual root was only a little bit away from becoming an indigo innate spiritual root. Walao, what's the cultivation base of these people? However, out of concern for his own safety, Duan Lingtian still asked Elder Hua to help him investigate the cultivation base of these people who were staring at him with ill intentions. When Hua Lao heard Duan Lingtian's question, he immediately replied to Duan Lingtian, "They're all at the quintessential saint stage. They're nothing to you." Quintessential saint stage? Duan Lingtian chuckled when he heard the answer from Hua Lao. Do I look like a weakling? Even a few small fries at the quintessential saint stage dare to target me? Fortunately, the people who were secretly monitoring him did not hear Duan Lingtian's words. Otherwise, they would be so angry that they would throw up blood. No matter what, they were still at the quintessential saint stage. Although they were not the best in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, they were still considered to be above average. However, in Duan Lingtian's mouth, they had actually become shrimps. Moreover, Duan Lingtian seemed to have completely forgotten about it. Based on his current cultivation base, he was only at the peak of the exemplary saint stage. Anyone who was at the quintessential saint stage or above would not take him seriously after probing his current cultivation base. They would only think of him as an ordinary exemplary saint stage martial cultivator. So, after Duan Lingtian found out the people who were staring at him with ill intentions were only at the quintessential saint stage, he no longer had any concerns. He immediately flew away from the Decline Inn. And according to Hua Lao's answer just now, those people could threaten him, so he would return to the Decline Guest Inn to renew the room. If we really can't afford to offend them, can't we just avoid them? Although it was important to improve his innate spiritual root, it was not as important as his own life. Duan Lingtian was very clear about this. After Duan Lingtian left the inn, he left. Your group will continue to follow him. Our group will return to the Alliance and report this matter to the Alliance leader. All right. The group of people who had been staring at Duan Lingtian with ill intentions quickly divided into two groups. One group followed Duan Lingtian, while the other went in the opposite direction. These people were from the Ground Axe Alliance. The group that went in the opposite direction made their way to the Ground Axe Alliance's estate. Their goal was to return to the Ground Axe Alliance's estate and report to the Alliance leader that their target had left the Decline Guest Inn. They could sense the Alliance leader's high regard for this person, so they did not dare to neglect him. HM? Not all of them are following me. Could it be that they're not a group? When Duan Lingtian saw the group of people from the Ground Axe Alliance following him, he noticed many of them had left. For this reason, he guessed they were not a group. Humph! Duan Lingtian snorted inwardly as he flew out of Fallen City. Soon after, he left Sin City. Naturally, Duan Lingtian's speed was not fast. It was similar to an ordinary martial cultivator at the peak of the exemplary saint stage. He's left Sin City. After Duan Lingtian left Sin City, the group of people from the Ground Axe Alliance who were following him was stunned. Should we still follow him? Of course. Lord Alliance Leader has ordered us to follow him as soon as he leaves the inn. Don't lose him. Based on this person's speed, I'm afraid his cultivation base is only at the exemplary saint stage. I really don't know why Lord Alliance Leader thinks so highly of him and even promised such a ridiculous reward for him. Judging by the time, Lord Alliance Leader should be here soon. After Duan Lingtian left Sin City, the group of people from the Ground Axe Alliance followed him. Naturally, in order to avoid alerting the enemy, they still kept a distance from Duan Lingtian. Little did they know Duan Lingtian had already noticed them. Let's do it here. After leaving Sin City, Duan Lingtian, who was flying north, saw a mountain forest with a complicated terrain. His eyes gleamed as he thought of something. Before he left the city of Sin, he had a thought in his mind. He wanted to find a place where the people who were following him would not be able to hide. At that time, he would like to ask these people what they wanted to do. If they could not provide him with an answer, he did not mind turning their innate spiritual roots into nourishment for his innate spiritual root. Duan Lingtian had his eyes on the mountain forest with a complicated terrain. He wanted to find a place where the people behind him would not be able to hide. After arriving near the mountain forest, Duan Lingtian continued to fly forward as he descended from the sky. Swoosh! He seemed to have turned into a parabola as he descended into the mountain forest. At the same time, he disappeared from the sight of the group of people from the Ground Axe Alliance. What's that guy doing here? Don't tell me there's something good here. Don't tell me it's a treasure vault left behind by a powerhouse at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage. The group of people from the Ground Axe Alliance could not help but discuss among themselves when they saw Duan Lingtian disappearing into the mountain forest. As they discussed animatedly, their eyes couldn't help but light up. After all, the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance had asked them to follow the purple-clad young man. Since the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance was so concerned about the purple-clad young man whose cultivation base was only at the exemplary saint stage, they did not believe the purple-clad young man had nothing to do with them. If it's really a treasure vault left behind by a powerhouse at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage, the Ground Axe Alliance is going to strike gold this time. Many of the people from the Ground Axe Alliance's eyes lit up. As members of the Ground Axe Alliance, Even if they could not obtain any treasures from the treasure vault left behind by a powerhouse at the ninth form of the Saint Celestial stage, they would still be able to benefit from following the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance. He has already entered the mountain forest. Let's follow him. Don't lose him, one of the members from the Ground Axe Alliance suddenly said. His voice was loud, causing the other members from the Ground Axe Alliance to snap out of their daze. That's right. We can't lose him. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Immediately, a group of Ground Axe Alliance's members descended from the sky and entered the mountainous forest with complicated terrain. They were stunned when they entered the mountain forest, because they discovered that the purple-clothed youth they were following had completely disappeared after entering the forest. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air before their eyes. He's gone. We didn't arrive much later than him. Why did he suddenly disappear? With his speed, it's impossible for him to shake us off even if we're quite a distance away from him. The group of people from the Ground Axe Alliance was dumbfounded when they entered the mountain forest. They felt that something was amiss. If the purple-clad young man was really at the exemplary saint stage, even if he was at the peak of the exemplary saint stage, it was impossible for him to disappear from their sight in such a short time. What's going on? Did we lose him? If Lord Leader finds out we've lost him, based on how much Lord Leader values that person, I'm afraid we'll be severely punished. Punishment is one thing, but I'm afraid the Ground Axe Alliance will miss the treasure vault left behind by a powerhouse at the ninth form of the Saint Celestial stage. The members of the Ground Axe Alliance looked at each other anxiously. Why don't we split into a few groups and look for him separately? One of the members from the Ground Axe Alliance suggested, how about this? There are 9 of us here. We'll split into 3 groups. Each group will have 3 people. We'll look for the purple-clad young man in the north, west, and east. What do you think? Another member of the Ground Axe Alliance agreed and gave his own suggestion. The other 8 people agreed to his suggestion as well. Let's go. One of the members from the Ground Axe Alliance shouted. The 9 members from the Ground Axe Alliance were about to split into 3 groups and search in 3 different directions. There's no need to search. I'm here. A voice that seemed to come from all directions rang in the air. It clearly entered the ears of the members from the Ground Axe Alliance, causing their expressions to change drastically. Immediately after, their pupils constricted. That was because a person had suddenly appeared before their eyes. It was as if he had appeared out of thin air. This speed, naturally, the members from the Ground Axe Alliance did not think the person had appeared out of thin air. Due to this reason, they felt chills running down their spines when they saw the person had appeared out of thin air. Among these people, the strongest ones were at the peak of the quintessential saint stage, while the rest were at the intermediate quintessential saint stage or the mastery quintessential saint stage. However, they did not see the purple-clad young man's figure when he appeared. A Saint Celestial stage powerhouse. The same thought appeared in the minds of the 9 members from the Ground Axe Alliance at once. It was precisely because of this that their expressions had completely changed. Oh God! The person they were tailing was a Saint Celestial stage powerhouse? To think they had thought the person was only at the exemplary saint stage due to his slow speed. However, it seemed like the person had done it on purpose. Perhaps, the person had discovered them long ago. The person who had appeared out of thin air in front of the 9 members of the Ground Axe Alliance was, naturally, Duan Lingtian. He had used the tactic of luring the enemy into a trap to expose the 9 people who were tailing him. All of you are from the Ground Axe Alliance. Chapter 2104. As soon as Duan Lingtian asked this question, his son's saint energy that had been boosted by the divine ability, the devouring tactic, emitted a terrifying aura that swept toward the members of the Ground Axe Alliance. With Duan Lingtian's current cultivation base at the peak of the exemplary saint stage, his son's saint energy was comparable to the saint energy of an ordinary quintessential saint stage martial cultivator, even without the help of the devouring tactic. With the help of the divine ability, the devouring tactic, his saint origin was comparable to a Saint Celestial stage powerhouse. For this reason, the aura of Duan Lingtian's son's saint energy pressed down on the members of the Ground Axe Alliance, causing them to tremble violently as their faces turned pale. It was obvious they were under great pressure. Yes, my lord. A few members with a weaker cultivation base were the first to succumb to the pressure. They replied in a trembling voice. At the same time, they lowered their heads humbly, not daring to look at Duan Lingtian. The remaining members of the Ground Axe Alliance did not dare to slack off when they realized Duan Lingtian was a Saint Celestial stage powerhouse. At this moment, they could not help but feel resentment toward the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance. If they had known the purple-clad young man was a Saint Celestial stage powerhouse, they would not have dared to follow him even if they were given 100 guts. Facing a group of Ground Axe Alliance members who were almost scared out of their wits, the rest was simple. No matter what Duan Lingtian asked, they did not dare to hide anything from Duan Lingtian. The leader of the Ground Axe Alliance has his eyes on me? At the same time, Duan Lingtian learned that Duan Lingtian had been sent by the Ground Axe Alliance. These members of the Ground Axe Alliance were sent by Yaobuji, the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance, to keep an eye on him. As for why Yaobuji would target him, the members of the Ground Axe Alliance had no idea. However, they guessed he had information about the treasure vault left behind by a powerhouse at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Duan Lingtian was rendered speechless when he heard the members of the Ground Axe Alliance's speculations. He did not expect the members of the Ground Axe Alliance to be so imaginative. This is strange. Why would the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance have his eyes on me? Duan Lingtian, naturally, was puzzled. He was certain. When he had killed the 2 members of the Ground Axe Alliance outside the city of Sin, no one had seen his face clearly. That's right. After the 2 members of the Ground Axe Alliance died, I sensed a Dao talisman fluctuation from their bodies. Could it have something to do with that? Duan Lingtian was Duan Lingtian's Dao sect had a Dao origin body. Duan Lingtian could not help but ask Elder Hua when he thought of this. It's a possibility. Dao talismans used Dao talismans of the Dao talismans on the talismans was sect consumed Dao talismans. This means the 2 Dao talismans can be activated automatically if the owner of the Dao talisman is dead. I think the 2 Dao talismans must have the ability to transmit images. They must have transmitted the scene of you killing the 2 members of the Ground Axe Alliance to the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance through the Dao talisman's power. Hua Lao said, "There's such a Dao talisman?" Duan Lingtian was shocked by Hua Lao's words. He found it hard to believe there was such a Dao talisman in this world. There must be. Hua Lao answered Duan Lingtian's question with certainty. Duan Lingtian had no choice but to believe it. Duan Lingtian thought to himself, "It seems like I should learn more about the Dao talismans in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land when I return to Sin City. Even if I killed 2 members of the Ground Axe Alliance, there's no need for the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance to make such a big fuss over it. Could it be because of the 1,000 inscriptions Saint Sword?" Duan Lingtian thought about the 1,000 inscriptions Saint Sword he had found in the spatial ring of one of the members of the Ground Axe Alliance. The 1,000 inscriptions Saint Sword belonged to the old man who was killed by the 2 members of the Ground Axe Alliance. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he was even more certain of his guess. What's the cultivation base of the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance? Apart from the leader, what's the cultivation base of the other high-ranking officials? Duan Lingtian asked in a deep voice as he looked at the members of the Ground Axe Alliance. Duan Lingtian learned from the members of the Ground Axe Alliance that the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance was the strongest. The strongest person in the Ground Axe Alliance was Yaobuji. He was at the 3rd form of the Saint Celestial stage. He was also the only powerhouse at the 3rd form of the Saint Celestial stage in the Ground Axe Alliance. Although Yaobuji's strength was not the strongest among all the powerhouses at the 3rd form of the Saint Celestial stage in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, he could easily be ranked in the upper middle. Similarly, Duan Lingtian was a powerhouse at the 3rd form of the Saint Celestial stage. Before Duan Lingtian defeated Bu Hong in the Zoroastrianism tournament, he was ranked at the 421st place on the Supreme Saint ranking. Yaobuji, the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance, was ranked at the 266th place on the Supreme Saint ranking. Based on this, one could see the gap between the 2 of them. The Ground Axe Alliance only has one powerhouse at the 3rd form of the Saint Celestial stage. Naturally, Duan Lingtian was not afraid even if he knew Yao Buji was much stronger than Bu Hong. With his current strength and the Jasper Celestial Sword, he could kill Yao Buji in a blink of an eye if Yao Buji was not at the fourth form of the Saint Celestial stage or above. Yao Buji was the only powerhouse at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage, the Spiritual Eyes form, in the Ground Axe Alliance. In other words, Duan Lingtian was the only one. Apart from Yao Buji, no one else in the Ground Axe Alliance could capture the Jasper Celestial Sword when Duan Lingtian activated the third stage of the Sovereign Heart Sword. As for Yao Buji, he might be able to vaguely capture the Jasper Celestial Sword. However, at that time, he would be a dead man. The 9 of you, do you want to live or die? Duan Lingtian asked indifferently as he looked at the 9 members of the Ground Axe Alliance. His voice was so calm that it was impossible to tell if he was happy or angry. My lord, I want to live. My lord, I want to live as well. The 9 members of the Ground Axe Alliance heard Duan Lingtian's words and expressed their opinions one after another. They gave the same answer to Duan Lingtian. What a joke. Who would want to die if they had a chance to live? Lead the way. Bring me to the Ground Axe Alliance. Duan Lingtian said again. Although his voice was calm, a murderous intent could be seen in the depths of his eyes. It was obvious he was enraged and intended to kill his way to the Ground Axe Alliance. Gasp, 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 gasp. The 9 members of the Ground Axe Alliance gasped when they heard Duan Lingtian's words. Based on the purple-clad young man's words, it seemed like he was going to the Ground Axe Alliance. Was he not walking into a trap and seeking his own death? However, no matter how they looked at it, they did not think the purple-clad young man before them was someone who would seek his own death. In that case, there was only one possibility. I'm afraid this lord isn't afraid of Lord Alliance leader. The moment the 9 members of the Ground Axe Alliance thought of this, their hearts skipped a beat. A bitter smile appeared on their faces. Lord Alliance leader, what kind of people did you offend? They believed the purple-clad young man before them did not casually ask about the cultivation base of the Ground Axe Alliance's high-ranking officials. He was trying to figure out the Ground Axe Alliance's cultivation base. Naturally, the 9 members of the Ground Axe Alliance did not dare to reject Duan Lingtian. They immediately brought Duan Lingtian away from the forest and made their way back to Sin City. Lord, I used a communication jade token before we entered the forest. Soon after they left the forest, one of the members of the Ground Axe Alliance stammered to Duan Lingtian. I'm afraid the Lord Alliance leader of the Ground Axe Alliance is heading in this direction. He's coming. As soon as the member of the Ground Axe Alliance finished speaking, Duan Lingtian seemed to have sensed something. He looked in the direction of Sin City. Whoosh! Along with the sound of wind whistling that was getting closer and closer, Duan Lingtian saw a figure flying toward him at an extremely fast speed. The figure was so fast that even a powerhouse at the second form of the Saint Celestial stage might not be able to move as fast as him. After a while, the figure appeared out of thin air in front of the members of the Ground Axe Alliance. The appearance of the figure caused the members of the Ground Axe Alliance to perk up. They bowed respectfully in unison. Lord Alliance leader. It was Yao Buji, the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance. At the same time, Duan Lingtian had also confirmed the newcomer's identity. At the same time, he sized up the newcomer. He was a middle-aged man with a medium build and an ordinary appearance. He was the kind of person who would not stand out in a crowd. However, Yao Buji ignored the members of the Ground Axe Alliance when he appeared. Instead, he looked at Duan Lingtian with a piercing gaze. This was because he was a young man. He had seen the purple-clad young man through the major mirror image talisman earlier. The purple-clad young man had killed his subordinate and taken the spatial ring that contained the 1,000 inscriptions Saint Sword. You, just when Yao Buji spoke coldly and wanted to say something to Duan Lingtian. Whoosh! The sound of a sword whistling in the air rang in the ears of Yao Buji and the members of the Ground Axe Alliance. As Yao Buji's pupil shrank, he saw a swift sword light flying towards him. The speed was so fast that he couldn't dodge it. No, there was no way he could dodge the sword ray. He did not even have time to react. Whoosh! The sound of a sword whistling in the air rang in the ears of the members of the Ground Axe Alliance. They were so shocked that their hearts skipped a beat. In the next moment, they saw a scene that they would never forget for the rest of their lives. The leader of the Ground Axe Alliance, Yaobuji, was a powerhouse at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage who was ranked 266th on the Supreme Saint ranking. However, he was killed by a sword that pierced the space between his brows. An indigo innate spiritual root. Chapter 2105. Indigo innate spiritual root. Duan Lingtian was very excited. Currently, even a person with a yellow innate spiritual root would have an indigo innate spiritual root after he had devoured it. Moreover, Yaobuji's innate spiritual root was not as simple as a yellow innate spiritual root. Although Yaobuji was only a sectless cultivator, he was still the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance in Sin City. Moreover, his cultivation base had broken through to the third form of the Saint Celestial stage. Even if his innate spiritual root was bad, it would not be too bad. Before arriving at Sin City 10 days ago, Duan Lingtian had disguised himself. His current appearance was not the same as when he was in the Zoroastrianism sect or Clarity City. Moreover, the members of the Ground Axe Alliance were only at the quintessential saint stage. For this reason, he did not plan to use his 10,000 swords territory to block the members of the Ground Axe Alliance's sight before he devoured Yaobuji's innate spiritual root. Hualao. Duan Lingtian called out to Hualao as the members of the Ground Axe Alliance looked at him in shock. With Hualao's help, he quickly devoured Yaobuji's innate spiritual root. Yaobuji's innate spiritual root did not disappoint Duan Lingtian. Blue innate spiritual root. After devouring Yaobuji's innate spiritual root, Duan Lingtian's innate spiritual root had turned indigo, just as Hualao had said. Your innate spiritual root is already an indigo innate spiritual root. As soon as Elder Hua's voice entered Duan Lingtian's ears, he immediately tried to sense the heaven and earth spirit energy in the air. Then, he began to circulate the Nine Dragons War Sovereign technique using his cultivation method, the Nine Dragons War Sovereign technique. Using the Nine Dragons energy, he began to circulate the heaven and earth spirit energy into his body. My cultivation speed is more than twice as fast as before. After sensing his current cultivation speed, Duan Lingtian's eyes shone brightly like two dazzling stars in the night sky. After retrieving Yaobuji's storage ring, Duan Lingtian loosened his grip, allowing Yaobuji's body to fall from the sky. Boom! With a soft sound, Yaobuji's body fell to the ground and turned into a pile of mud. The 9 members of the Ground Axe Alliance snapped out of their daze. When they looked at Duan Lingtian again, it was as if they had seen a ghost. Their eyes were filled with fear and shock. Thinking back to the scene just now, they still couldn't believe it. I'm not dreaming, right? Someone as strong as Lord Alliance Master didn't even have time to finish his sentence before he was killed by him in a single move. It doesn't seem like he launched a sneak attack. He attacked head-on, and Lord Alliance Master didn't even have a chance to react before he was killed. The 9 members of the Ground Axe Alliance looked at each other and whispered to each other. Their voices trembled at the same time. The strength of the purple-clothed youth before them completely exceeded their imaginations. The leader of the Ground Axe Alliance was a powerhouse at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage, and he was ranked 266th on the Supreme Saint ranking. However, such a powerhouse was killed by the purple-clad young man in just a single blow. Just how terrifying was this purple-clothed youth's strength? 4th form of the Saint Celestial stage? Or perhaps even higher? Duan Lingtian heard the whispers of the members of the Ground Axe Alliance. He glanced at them indifferently and decided to ignore them. His figure flashed, and he was ready to leave. In his opinion, these Ground Axe Alliance members were sent by Yaobuji to follow him. They had no intention of killing him, so he had no reason to kill them. Furthermore, now that Yaobuji was dead, Duan Lingtian had no intention of making things difficult for them. Lord! However, when Duan Lingtian was about to leave, one of the members of the Ground Axe Alliance mustered up his courage and called out to him. Duan Lingtian had just mobilized his Sun Saint energy, so he did not leave immediately. Duan Lingtian glanced at the member of the Ground Axe Alliance who had called out to him. He frowned slightly and asked, "Is there anything else?" The other members of the Ground Axe Alliance sighed in relief when they saw Duan Lingtian had no intention of making a fuss about it and was about to leave. When they saw their companions calling out to Duan Lingtian, they were so frightened that their hearts were in their mouths. "Idiot! What are you trying to do? Damn it! That fiend is about to leave. Why did you call out to him? What if this fiend suddenly goes back on his word and attacks us again? Even if you want to die, don't drag us down with you." The other members of the Ground Axe Alliance immediately sent voice transmissions to the member who had called out to Duan Lingtian. It was as though they wanted to rip his mouth off. However, the member of the Ground Axe Alliance ignored their voice transmissions. He looked at Duan Lingtian respectfully and asked, "Lord, may I know your name?" "Why are you asking this?" Duan Lingtian replied coldly. It was clear he did not intend to tell the member of the Ground Axe Alliance. "Lord, the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance, Yao Buji, is ranked 266th on the Supreme Saint ranking," the member of the Ground Axe Alliance said solemnly. The member of the Ground Axe Alliance said solemnly, "Today, all of us witnessed how you killed Yao Buji with our own eyes. As long as we know your name, we'll spread the news so that you can replace Yao Buji on the Supreme Saint ranking. Of course, if you're ranked higher than Yao Buji on the Supreme Saint ranking, you can just pretend I'm not here." The member of the Ground Axe Alliance said sincerely as though he was concerned about Duan Lingtian. Upon hearing the member of the Ground Axe Alliance's words, the other members of the Ground Axe Alliance's eyes lit up immediately. Why did they not think of this? To a certain extent, their actions could be considered as flattering this powerhouse before them. They did not have to worry about Duan Lingtian going back on his word and killing them. "Lord, he's right. As long as you tell us your name, we'll spread the news of today's incident. Lord, don't worry. If anyone doesn't believe us, we're willing to swear on the lightning penalty oath to prove it." Although the other 8 members of the Ground Axe Alliance were slightly slow to react, they still began to flatter Duan Lingtian after the first member of the Ground Axe Alliance reminded them about the situation. Duan Lingtian looked at the 9 members of the Ground Axe Alliance and nodded nonchalantly before he said, "I'm Li Feng." As soon as he finished speaking, he seemed to have transformed into a gust of wind and disappeared before the eyes of the 9 members of the Ground Axe Alliance. After Duan Lingtian left, the 9 members of the Ground Axe Alliance sighed in relief. They knew they had escaped death. Li Feng? This name. Is there a person with this name on the Supreme Saint ranking? One of the members of the Ground Axe Alliance asked curiously after he caught his breath. "I pay attention to every issue of the Supreme Saint ranking. However, there's no Li Feng on the latest issue of the Supreme Saint ranking. It seems like Li Feng was a sexless cultivator who lived in seclusion before this," another member of the Ground Axe Alliance said. Although the Supreme Saint ranking was said to have gathered the 1,000 most powerful people in the Dao Martial Saint land, the Supreme Saint ranking was still considered as a saint ranking. However, the Dao Martial Saint land was so huge that some sexless cultivators who lived in seclusion would not appear on the Supreme Saint ranking no matter how strong they were. In the eyes of the members of the Ground Axe Alliance, the powerhouse who had killed the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance, Yao Buji, who called himself Li Feng, was one of those sexless powerhouses who lived in seclusion. As soon as he appeared, he went from a nobody to the 266th place on the Supreme Saint ranking. From today onward, the name Li Feng will definitely spread throughout Sin City and the entire Dao Martial Saint land. The members of the Ground Axe Alliance were certain of this. In the eyes of the people in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint land, the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint land represented the entire Dao Martial Saint land. In fact, this was indeed the case. In this era, the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint land had become a vassal of the upper province to a certain extent. Although the upper province and the lower province only made up the Dao Martial Saint land, all the powerhouses in the upper province were in charge. When the members of the Ground Axe Alliance returned to Sin City, they did not dare to slack off. They quickly recounted everything that they had witnessed today to their superiors. This news instantly caused a commotion in Sin City. Yao Buji, the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance, was a powerhouse at the 3rd form of the Saint Celestial stage who was ranked 266th on the Supreme Saint ranking. Such a powerhouse could be considered one of the top powerhouses in Sin City. For this reason, the Seckless cultivators in Sin City were shocked when they learned he had been killed. A powerhouse called Li Feng killed Yao Buji. Moreover, he killed Yao Buji with just a blow. He didn't even launch a sneak attack. Many Seckless cultivators in Sin City were stunned when they heard the news. It was not as simple as being half as strong as Yao Buji. As a powerhouse at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage, Yao Buji is ranked in the upper middle among all the powerhouses at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage in the Dao Martial Saintland. How could such a powerhouse be killed with just a blow? Li Feng's strength is most likely at the fourth form of the Saint Celestial stage, or even higher. Many people speculated. Many people agreed with this speculation. They believed Yao Buji was a powerhouse. Even the most powerful powerhouses at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage in the Dao Martial Saintland would not be able to kill Yao Buji with just a blow. The news continued to spread. Chapter 2106. The Supreme Saint ranking was the most authoritative ranking in the Dao Martial Saintland. It would be updated every month. The Supreme Saint ranking would appear in the form of a book. It was similar to the magazines on Earth where Duan Lingtian was from in his past life. It was circulated in the Dao Martial Saintland. As Li Feng's name spread in Sin City in the Central Province, more than half of the people in the Upper Province of the Dao Martial Saintland learned about him. Another Seckless cultivator who had been in seclusion had appeared in front of everyone. Moreover, as soon as he appeared, he was ranked 266th on the Supreme Saint ranking. Due to this reason, Li Feng's name was the most eye-catching on the Supreme Saint ranking. Anyone who had a book on the Supreme Saint ranking would know about Li Feng's existence immediately. Li Feng had gone from an unknown person to a famous figure in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saintland in just one night. Even the person involved, Duan Lingtian, did not expect this to happen. After killing Yao Buji, the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance, and returning to Sin City, Duan Lingtian had immediately looked for an inn to stay in and focus on his cultivation. Currently, his innate spiritual root had already turned indigo. For this reason, he wanted to strike while the iron was hot and break through to the quintessential saint stage. I won't come out of closed-door cultivation until I've broken through to the quintessential saint stage. After entering the fourth level of the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, Duan Lingtian had set a goal for himself before he entered closed-door cultivation. As for the outside world, no matter how popular something was, it would gradually die down after a while. Li Feng's name had only spread in Sin City for a while before it was rarely mentioned anymore. Naturally, this was also because the people in Sin City were the first to learn about Li Feng's existence and how Li Feng had killed Yao Buji, who was ranked 266th on the original Extreme Saint ranking. Outside, in many small cities, the discussions about Li Feng did not die down at all. During this period of time, almost everyone in the Central Province knew about Li Feng. In the Chiu clan's estate in Clarity City at the border of the Western Province, Miss Mu Qing, good news, good news. Early in the morning, an excited and aged voice broke the silence outside Chiu Mu Qing's residence. Of course, the visitors only dared to stand at the entrance of the mansion. Without permission, they did not dare to enter. It was an old man with a brand new book in his hand. The words Supreme Saint ranking were written on the book. It was the latest issue of the Supreme Saint ranking. Elder Liang, Miss invites you in. A moment later, a maid walked out and said to the old man. When the old man heard this, he followed the maid into the residence. He saw the young miss of the Chiu clan, Chiu Mu Qing, in the pavilion in the front courtyard. Chiu Mu Qing was as beautiful as ever. She looked like a fairy who had descended from the heavens. Elder Liang, you said you had good news early in the morning. I wonder what it is? Chiu Mu Qing asked with a smile when she saw the old man walking into the pavilion. The old man was none other than the second elder of the Eastern Fang clan, Dongfang Liang. He was also one of the few Saint Celestial stage powerhouses in Clarity City. If anyone saw him behaving so respectfully in front of the young miss of the Chiu clan, their eyes would have popped out of their sockets. It was shocking and unbelievable. In Clarity City, there were very few Saint Celestial stage powerhouses, and their statuses were high. Dongfang Liang, the second elder of the Eastern Fang clan, was not an ordinary Saint Celestial stage powerhouse. Even the clan leader of the Chiu clan, who was also a Saint Celestial stage powerhouse, did not dare to slight him. However, he was like a servant in front of the daughter of the clan leader of the Qiu clan. In fact, Dongfang Liang was indeed a servant by Qiu Muqing's side. Initially, Dongfang Liang was reluctant. However, when he discovered Qiu Muqing did not treat him as a servant just because he had sworn on the lightning penalty oath, he no longer resisted and gradually got used to his role. Perhaps this was what it meant to win someone over with virtue. Miss Muqing, take a look. Dongfang Liang raised his hand and passed the latest Supreme Saint ranking to Qiu Muqing. The second page is the headline at the back of the table of contents. Take a look. Qiu Muqing took the Supreme Saint ranking curiously. Then, she opened it and flipped to the second page according to Dongfang Liang's instructions. It did not take long for Qiu Muqing's eyes to light up again. This was because she saw the name Li Feng. Li Feng, a sexless cultivator who lived in seclusion. He killed Yao Buji, who was ranked 266th on the original Supreme Saint ranking in the north of Sin City in the central region in just one blow and replaced him. Apart from this sentence, the entire page was filled with information about Yao Buji's past achievements to show how extraordinary Li Feng was. Moreover, the Supreme Saint ranking also stated Li Feng's true strength was most likely ranked in the top 200 on the Supreme Saint ranking. Central Region, Sin City, Li Feng. Moreover, he was a Saint Celestial stage powerhouse. For this reason, Qiu Muqing was certain of this. This Li Feng was the man who had been haunted by her dreams. Naturally, she knew Li Feng was only a pseudonym. His real name was Duan Lingtian. He was one of the 8 prodigies of Zoroastrianism. He was famous for a long time. I can't believe he's been gone for so long. However, I still feel as though I've just seen him yesterday. Qiu Muqing sighed inwardly. A complicated expression appeared on her face. In the past, she would not have believed she would fall in love with a man she had only known for a day. Initially, she thought she would forget about him as time passed. At that time, there was no need for her to continue with her plan. However, it seemed like she had not forgotten about him at all. For so many years, she had never put a man in her heart. But now, a man had entered her heart. It was like a gangrene attached to the bone. While she was suffering, she could not get rid of it. Perhaps it's time for me to leave Clarity City. Qiu Muqing thought to herself as her eyes glinted. Miss Muqing, do you think he's Lord Li Feng? Dongfang Liang asked when he saw Qiu Muqing was in a daze for a moment before she regained her senses. Although he guessed that Li Feng was Lord Li Feng, who had displayed his invincible might in the Qiu family's main hall, he was not certain. It's him. Qiu Muqing nodded before she said, before he left, he told me he's going to Sin City in the central region. Dongfang Liang gasped when he heard Qiu Muqing's confirmation. It was really him. Meanwhile, in the western region, Zoroastrianism, one of the 3 strongest sects in the Tao martial saint land, had also made its way to the central region. Everyone from Zoroastrianism knew about Li Feng. However, it did not cross their minds that Li Feng was a disciple of Zoroastrianism. His name was Duan Lingtian, a true disciple of Zoroastrianism, in the Azure Dragon Sanctum of Zoroastrianism. Recently, Bu Hong, the eldest direct disciple of Lu Tai, the sanctum leader of Azure Dragon Sanctum, had been staying in his mansion. A few days ago, a piece of news had spread from Sin City in the central region. Bu Hong, who was already in a bad mood, was so angry that he almost threw up blood. Previously, he had been to Sin City in the central region and killed the younger brother of the deputy leader of the Black Crow Alliance, a sexless cultivator alliance. He had made an enemy out of Sin City. Although he had Zoroastrianism and the sanctum leader of Azure Dragon Sanctum as his backing, he was not afraid of the Black Crow Alliance. However, he was still furious that he was wronged. Li Feng, a sexless cultivator who lived in seclusion, killed Yao Buji, who was ranked 266th on the Supreme Saint ranking, and replaced him. At this moment, Bu Hong was holding the new Supreme Saint ranking in his hand. In the new Supreme Saint ranking, he had fallen from the 421st place to the 537th place. He was frustrated. How good would it be if I can enter the top 300 of the Supreme Saint ranking like Li Feng and become famous in the Tao martial saint land? At that time, even Master would be proud of me. Bu Hong clenched his fists so tightly that the Supreme Saint ranking began to distort. With my innate talent, it's only a matter of time before I enter the top 300 of the Supreme Saint ranking. As long as I'm given enough time, I might even be able to enter the top 100, top 50, or even top 30 of the Supreme Saint ranking. This is because I possess an indigo innate spiritual root. With an indigo innate spiritual root, I'm considered a top genius in the Tao Martial Saint land. However, all of this is gone now. It's gone. Bu Hong muttered to himself as his eyes turned red. He was so agitated that his body began to tremble. He felt as though he had fallen from heaven to hell in just one night. And all of this is because of Duan Ling Tian. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have ended up like this. I wouldn't have lost my indigo innate spiritual root. Bu Hong continued to mumble to himself as he grew increasingly crazed. However, in the end, he strangely quieted down. In his mind, the scene of the battle with Duan Ling Tian that day replayed before his eyes, and it was extremely clear. At this moment, Bu Hong was extremely calm. Although this calmness was very short, it still reminded him of a very important matter. That day, Duan Ling Tian defeated me. Based on his assist-type divine ability, it's impossible for him to be stronger than me even if he comprehended his martial tactics and divine abilities to the peak. However, his sword was so fast that I couldn't react at all. Based on his strength and techniques, it's impossible for him to achieve that even if he used the 1,000 Inscription Saint Sword. Chapter 2107. Bu Hong's master was Lu Tai, the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum. Lu Tai was a golden flame elder of the Zoroastrianism sect. Not only that, but he was also one of the strongest golden flame elders in the Zoroastrianism sect. It was only natural that someone like him would possess a 1,000 Inscription Saint weapon. Due to this reason, Bu Hong's understanding of 1,000 Inscription Saint weapons was much deeper than ordinary people. If the sword he used was only a 1,000 Inscription Saint sword, his sword wouldn't have been so ridiculously fast even if he had cast a high-grade martial tactic and comprehended a high-grade sword-type divine ability to its limit. The third form of the Saint Celestial stage is also known as the Spiritual Eyes form. After I entered the third form of the Saint Celestial stage, I've also awakened a pair of spiritual eyes. Even then, his sword strike was just a flash in my eyes. What does this mean? This means the sword he's using must be a sword of a higher grade than the 1,000 Inscription Saint sword. In the Tao Martial Saint land, only 10,000 Inscription Saint swords have a higher grade than a 1,000 Inscription Saint sword. There are a total of 10,000 Inscription Saint weapons in the Tao Martial Saint land. They're the 10 grade-level Saint weapons on the 10 Great Saint Weapons ranking. Among these 10 grade-level Saint weapons, only 2 of them are swords. The 9 Cloud Sword and the Traceless Sword. I wonder which sword does Duan Ling Tian have? Bu Hong's breathing quickened when he thought of this. If my innate spiritual root wasn't destroyed by Duan Ling Tian, I definitely wouldn't have spread this news. After my cultivation base surpasses his, I'll enter the Palace of Death and sign a death pact with him. I'll kill him and take the 10,000 Inscription Saint sword for myself. As Bu Hong muttered to himself, a chilling light shot out from his eyes. However, now that my innate spiritual root has been destroyed by him, I won't be able to defeat him in the future. If that's the case, there's no need for me to keep this news to myself. Should I only tell Master, or should I spread the news widely? As Bu Hong muttered to himself, a trace of hesitation flashed across his eyes. It was difficult for him to make a decision. Master definitely wouldn't spread the news if he only told it to him. That's a 10,000 Inscription Saint sword, a level 10 Saint weapon on the 10 Great Saint Weapons ranking. Even Master would be tempted by it and want to take it for himself. Human nature was selfish. Bu Hong was very clear about this. He was certain if he told this news to his master, the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum, his master would definitely not spread the news. He would also forbid him from spreading the news. As long as one was a person, they would want to take possession of a sacred artifact. Forget it. I should tell Master first. With his master's strength, it would not be difficult for him to kill that Duan Ling Tian and seize the 10,000 inscriptions Saint's sword from him. This way, it can be considered as revenge for me. Soon after, Bu Hong made up his mind. He would tell his master that Duan Lingtian possessed the 10,000 inscriptions Saint's sword. If master obtains the sword, he'll definitely feel indebted to me in the future. After all, he only managed to obtain the sword because of my reminder. Bu Hong thought to himself. In Bu Hong's opinion, as long as Duan Lingtian was dead, it did not matter who killed him. If it was his master who did it, that sacred artifact would only be beneficial to him and not harm him. Moreover, it would be beneficial to him. Since Bu Hong had made up his mind, he immediately left to look for his master. Master! Bu Hong entered the backyard of his master's residence. His master, Lu Tai, the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum, was tending to some flowers and plants. When he heard Bu Hong's voice, he immediately stopped what he was doing and turned around to look at Bu Hong. What's the matter? A puzzled expression appeared on Lu Tai's face. Ever since his first direct disciple found out that Duan Lingtian had secretly left the Zoroastrianism, he had been in seclusion all day. Today, in order to relieve Bu Hong of his boredom, he had even sent the latest issue of the Supreme Saint ranking to Bu Hong's room. However, he did not expect Bu Hong would come out of his room to look for him. Master, I just remembered something very important, Bu Hong said solemnly. Oh, what is it? Lu Tai knew his direct disciple very well. He knew his direct disciple was not a person who would speak without thinking. Since he said it was something important, it must be something important. Master, I suspect that Duan Lingtian, who defeated me, possesses a level 10 saint weapon. When Bu Hong spoke again, he did not beat around the bush and spoke bluntly. Level 10 saint weapon. As Bu Hong's voice fell, Lu Tai's pupils couldn't help but shrink, and a look of horror appeared on his face. At the same time, his heart began to beat faster. Even in the entire Dao Martial Saint Land, there were only 10 level 10 saint weapons. Moreover, they were famous in the 10 Great Saint Weapons ranking of the Dao Martial Saint Land. Even the Zoroastrianism only had one level 10 saint weapon. It was the inheritance saint weapon of Zoroastrianism. It was in the hands of the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism. Based on this, one could see how precious a level 10 saint weapon was. However, his first direct disciple was telling him that Duan Lingtian possessed a level 10 saint weapon? How could he not be shocked? Are you sure? Are you sure Duan Lingtian has a level 10 saint weapon? When Lu Tai looked at Bu Hong again, he had a solemn expression on his face. It caused the atmosphere in the backyard to turn solemn. Master, that Duan Lingtian. Then, Bu Hong began to tell Lu Tai about the details of his battle with Duan Lingtian that day. He even told Lu Tai about his suspicions. His suspicions were well-founded, so Lu Tai had no choice but to believe him. If that's the case, he must have obtained the 9-Cloud Sword, or the Traceless Sword from the 10 Great Saint Weapons ranking. Lu Tai took a deep breath. After a while, he said, based on what you said, he must have obtained the Traceless Sword. The Traceless Sword is known as the Traceless Sword. It's impossible to guard against it. Your cultivation base has broken through to the third form of the Saint Celestial stage, the Spiritual Eyes form. With your spiritual eyes, it's normal for you to only be able to catch a glimpse of Duan Lingtian's Traceless Sword. However, for those below the third form of the Saint Celestial stage who haven't awakened their spiritual eyes, it's impossible for them to catch a glimpse of Duan Lingtian's Traceless Sword. Lu Tai said, if that's the case, we can explain why Duan Lingtian has mastered the mysterious sword-wielding art. It's because he has the Traceless Sword that not many people can catch a glimpse of his sword. Even your junior sister was defeated by his Traceless Sword. If he doesn't have the Traceless Sword, he might not be a match for your junior sister. Lu Tai became more and more certain as he spoke. As for Bu Hong's junior sister, she was none other than his other direct disciple, Wen Yin. The Traceless Sword. He's really lucky. He actually obtained the Traceless Sword, one of the 10 Great Saint Weapons. Bu Hong's expression was filled with jealousy. After his master's confirmation, he was even more certain that Duan Lingtian's sword was the Traceless Sword that was listed on the 10 Great Saint Weapons ranking. He's really lucky. Unfortunately, he's destined to be mine. Lu Tai's eyes flashed as a sneer appeared on his face. Based on his words, it was as though Duan Lingtian's sword was already his. Indeed, he felt the same way. Although Duan Lingtian was strong, he was still far from being a match for Lu Tai. Hong if Master obtains the traceless sword, you'll be the one to take the credit. Lu Tai turned to look at Bu Hong with a smile on his face. No matter how he looked at Bu Hong, he found his eldest direct disciple pleasing to the eye. Master, if you want to obtain the traceless sword, you'll have to make a move against Duan Lingtian. If Duan Lingtian returns, he'll be arrested by the enforcement hall to determine if he destroyed my innate spiritual root or not. Bu Hong seemed to have recalled something as he said with a worried expression on his face. Once this matter is confirmed, Duan Lingtian will definitely be punished by the enforcement hall. Perhaps the enforcement hall won't execute him. However, he has offended Dong Yuanjin, the vice hall master of the enforcement hall. Once he's convicted, Dong Yuanjin will seek revenge for destroying Duan Lingtian's innate spiritual root. It won't be difficult for Dong Yuanjin to kill Duan Lingtian in the enforcement hall. If Duan Lingtian is killed by Dong Yuanjin in the enforcement hall, I'm afraid you won't have a chance to obtain the traceless sword. Bu Hong voiced out his worries in one breath. You're right. After hearing Bu Hong's words, Lu Tai couldn't help but frown because he knew that what Bu Hong said was very likely to happen. Dong Yuanjin, the vice hall master of the enforcement hall, was a vengeful person who was much stronger than Lu Tai. If the traceless sword fell into Dong Yuanjin's hands, it would be impossible for Lu Tai to obtain it. If the traceless sword fell into the hands of the enforcement hall, it would be even more impossible for Lu Tai to obtain it. Hong Lu Tai quickly made up his mind. He looked at Bu Hong and said, Master plans to go to the enforcement hall and withdraw the charges against Duan Lingtian. We'll just say that you destroyed your innate spiritual root due to a mistake in your cultivation. However, don't worry. Even if the enforcement hall doesn't stand up for you, I'll do my best to kill Duan Lingtian and avenge you. At the end of his speech, Lu Tai solemnly swore and promised. Of course, I believe in Master. Bu Hong nodded. He knew this was the best way for his master to obtain the traceless sword in Duan Lingtian's possession. Fortunately, Duan Lingtian was not here. Otherwise, he would be rendered speechless. When did he obtain the traceless sword, one of the 10 great saint weapons on the 10 great saint weapons ranking? Chapter 2108. Due to the interference of Dong Yuanjin, the vice hall master of the enforcement hall, Lu Tai, the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum, had gone to the enforcement hall to file a complaint against Duan Lingtian for crippling his eldest direct disciple's innate spiritual root. This matter did not spread to the outside world, let alone Zoroastrianism. Lu Tai could understand Dong Yuanjin's actions, and he agreed with him. After all, if news of this matter spread out, it would alert the Duan Lingtian to the point that he would no longer dare to return to Zoroastrianism. Lu Tai did not want that to happen as well. Today, Lu Tai had gone to the enforcement hall to file a complaint against Duan Lingtian. Although this matter did not cause an uproar in Zoroastrianism, it still caused a commotion in the enforcement hall. Lu Tai's actions could be considered a false accusation. According to the rules of the enforcement hall, Lu Tai had to be punished. However, the enforcement hall's elder in charge of the registration was only a silver flame elder. For this reason, he had no right to punish Lu Tai. Under such circumstances, Dong Yuanjin, the vice hall master of the enforcement hall, stepped forward. Sanctum leader Lu, are you really going to file a complaint against Duan Lingtian? Dong Yuanjin frowned as he looked at Lu Tai. He was puzzled as he asked, Can you tell me why? He did not believe Lu Tai's excuse about Bu Hong's innate spiritual root being crippled due to qi deviation. He felt there must be a deeper reason behind this matter. As it turned out, Dong Yuanjin was right. However, he could not figure out the real reason even in his wildest dreams. Vice Hall Master Dong, I've already done what I should. Lu Tai replied indifferently, as though he was a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water when faced with Dong Yuanjin's doubts. Naturally, Lu Tai knew Dong Yuanjin's doubts. It was obvious Dong Yuanjin was unwilling to let go of the opportunity to avenge his son, Dong Lin. Sanctum leader Lu, are you sure you're making a false accusation? It's slander. Although Duan Lingtian is no longer a member of Zoroastrianism, the enforcement hall still has the right to punish you according to the rules. Dong Yuanjin said in a deep voice. It was obvious he was threatening Lu Tai. However, was Lu Tai someone he could not threaten? Vice Hall Master Dong, I'm aware of this. I'm prepared to accept the punishment. However, as far as I know, my punishment will be reduced to 50% since I've surrendered, right? From beginning to end, Lu Tai's face was calm, as if the punishment he was about to face was nothing to him. Indeed, it was Dong Yuanjin's Lu Tai. With his cultivation base at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage, these wounds were no different from scratching an itch to him. Seeing that Lu Tai had already made up his mind, Dong Yuanjin did not say anything else. However, in the depths of his heart, a seed of doubt had been planted. He had a feeling that there was something behind Lu Tai's actions that he did not know. Hall Master Sanctum Leader Hall Division Master. Dong Hall Leader, S Hall Sex New Zone Master. Shalav of Lu to Lu Ren Hall Dong's Hall Leader Hall, not Lu Li, and Lu Master Lu. Hall's Tai. In the end, he could only resign himself to his fate. Although he had resigned himself to his fate, he was still unwilling to accept it. He finally had a chance to openly deal with Duan Lingtian, but now it had just passed him by. How could he be willing to accept this? A few days later, the peace of Zoroastrianism was broken by the arrival of a person. The person who had arrived was none other than Yang Chong, the 5th elder of the Northern Plethora sect. He was also a good friend of Lian, the 1st Silver Flame elder of the Black Turtle Sanctum. Yang Chong had come to look for Lian. However, when he arrived at the Black Turtle Sanctum, he discovered Lian was not around. Under his request, the other Black Turtle Sanctum's Silver Flame elders went to check on Lian's soul pearl. They discovered Lian's soul pearl had shattered, and it seemed like it had been shattered for quite some time. Something's wrong. As expected, something's wrong. Yang Chong's expression turned grave when he saw Lian's soul pearl had shattered. Elder Yang Chong, what happened? Tung Shan, the Black Turtle Sanctum's Silver Flame elder, asked in a deep voice as he looked at Yang Chong. Guo Xiong and Meng Jin, who were also Black Turtle Sanctum's Silver Flame elders, looked at Yang Chong in confusion. They did not know what Yang Chong meant. Naturally, the death of Lian, who was also a Black Turtle Sanctum's Silver Flame elder, had stirred up a storm in their hearts. Some time ago, Yang Chong revealed the whole story under the watchful eyes of the 3 Black Turtle Sanctum's Silver Flame elders. Naturally, he did not bring a few Saint Celestial stage powerhouses from the Northern Plethora sect to investigate Duan Lingtian. Lian had only brought a few Saint Celestial stage powerhouses from the Northern Plethora sect to the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. However, when he discovered Lian and the others had yet to return, the soul pearls of the few Saint Celestial stage powerhouses from the Northern Plethora sect had shattered. At this moment, he realized something might have happened to Lian and the others. The first thing he wanted to do was to head to the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land to investigate what had happened. However, when he arrived at the nearest inter-province transportation formation, he discovered the inter-province transportation formation could not be activated. At that time, he thought there was something wrong with the inter-province transportation formation. When he went to the other inter-province transportation formations in an attempt to teleport to the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, he discovered the inter-province transportation formations could not be activated. At this moment, he heard from someone who was near the inter-province transportation formation. It had been a while since the inter-province transportation formation could not teleport people to the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. That's why I came to Zoroastrianism. As expected, something has happened to Lian as well. Yang Chong's expression was grave as he continued to say, I heard from some people who are familiar with the inter-province transportation formation that many of the inter-province transportation formations in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land are connected to the inter-province transportation formation in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. If there's something wrong with the inter-province transportation formation in the lower province, we won't be able to teleport people there. If there's something wrong with the inter-province transportation formation in the upper province, The inter-province transportation formation in the lower province won't be affected because the latter doesn't need to rely on the former. Usually, the people who are teleported to the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land will be sent to random places in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. Yang Cheng said. Just like when Duan Lingtian, Gu Li, and Zhu Luqi were teleported to the upper province through the lower province's inter-province transportation formation, they were sent to random places in the upper province. They did not appear near the inter-province transportation formation. For this reason, I think there's something wrong with the inter-province transportation formation in the lower province. Yang Cheng said in a deep voice. There's something wrong with the inter-province transportation formation in the lower province? Guoxiong's expression turned solemn as he continued to say, as far as I know, the inter-province transportation formation in the lower province is much more stable than the ones in the upper province. It's said that when the inter-province transportation formation was set up, those seniors had fused it with the Grand Sealing formation that sealed the land of exile and shared the defensive formation in the Grand Sealing formation. Let alone a powerhouse at the ninth form of the Saint Celestial stage. Even if a few powerhouses at the ninth form of the Saint Celestial stage join forces, they might not be able to break through the defensive formation. Apart from being the Black Turtle Sanctum's Silver Flame Elder, Guoxiong was also the Black Turtle Sanctum's Enforcement Elder. He was also the most knowledgeable person in the Black Turtle Sanctum. He had done some research on some of the ancient stories in the Dao Martial Saint Land. He had read about the inter-province transportation formation in the Debussy subterranean being merged with the Grand Sealing formation used by the powerhouses during the Human Devil era to seal the land of exile in an ancient book. The Grand Sealing formation was used to seal the land of exile. In fact, it was used to seal the entrance from the land of exile to the Dao Martial Saint Land. The entrance was also a gap in the space barrier. The gap in the space barrier had prevented the devil clans from invading the Dao Martial Saint Land for hundreds of thousands of years. One could easily imagine how terrifying the defensive formation in the Grand Sealing formation was. Although there were not many powerhouses at the ninth form of the Saint Celestial stage who had not ascended in time, there were still a few of them. However, they still could not break through the Grand Sealing formation. For this reason, Guoxiong was confident. Even if a few powerhouses at the ninth form of the Saint Celestial stage joined forces, they might not be able to break through the inter-province transportation formation that shared the defensive formation in the Grand Sealing formation. If the inter-province transportation formation in the lower province is really destroyed, doesn't that mean the Grand Sealing formation is destroyed as well? Guoxiong's expression changed when he thought about this. In Sin City in the central region. Boom. In the quiet guest room of the inn, the fourth floor of the Seven Treasures, exquisite pagoda that had turned into dust in front of the bed suddenly exploded. Rolling waves of air swept out as if it had been affected by some kind of power. Ha 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 ha. At the same time, a burst of laughter rang in the air. Duan Lingtian, who was sitting cross-legged in the air, opened his eyes and laughed excitedly. He had made a breakthrough. After 2 months, he had finally made a breakthrough. Early quintessential saint stage. After he stopped laughing, Duan Lingtian tried to circulate the Sun Saint energy in his body. He discovered his Sun Saint energy had transformed again. Now, even without using the divine ability, the devouring tactic, my Sun Saint energy is comparable to the saint origin of a powerhouse at the first form of the Saint Celestial stage. My light blue innate spiritual root has given me such an innate talent. If my innate spiritual root transforms into a violet innate spiritual root, how terrifying would my cultivation speed be? The moment he thought of this, Duan Lingtian felt a surge of excitement in his heart. However, his excitement did not last long. When Duan Lingtian was about to leave the inn, he overheard some passing sectless cultivators mentioning something. For some reason, the inter-province transportation formations in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land could no longer send people to the lower province. Chapter 2109. The inter-province transportation formations in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land can't send people to the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land? Duan Lingtian's expression changed drastically when he heard this news. That excitement that had arisen in his heart due to the breakthrough in his cultivation had also vanished in an instant. Perhaps, This news was nothing to most people in the upper province of the Dao Marshall Saint Land. After all, not many people from the upper province would use the inter-province transportation formations to travel to the lower province. However, to Duan Lingtian, this news was like a bolt from the blue. The reason being that his family and friends were all in the lower district. Could it be that there's something wrong with the inter-province transportation formations in the upper province? Duan Lingtian tried his best to calm down. He felt this news was a little exaggerated. Would the inter-province transportation formations that connected the upper province and the lower province of the Dao Marshall Saint Land lose their effectiveness just because they failed? He did not believe it. He thought this was just a rumor. However, as he wandered around Sin City, he heard the same news again and again. It shook his firm belief. Could it be that there's something wrong with the inter-province transportation formations in the upper province? Duan Lingtian's expression turned grave when he thought of this. If he could not return to the lower province from the upper province of the Dao Marshall Saint Land, it meant he would not be able to see his family and friends again. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he began to feel anxious again. It seems like there's something wrong with the inter-province transportation formations in the lower province. The inter-province transportation formations in the upper province are still intact. It's only because there's no inter-province transportation formation in the lower province that the inter-province transportation formations in the upper province can't be activated. I heard about it as well. One has to rely on the inter-province transportation formations in the lower province to travel from the upper province to the lower province. However, there's no need to rely on the inter-province transportation formations in the upper province to travel from the lower province to the upper province. It's a one-way, random transportation. Now that there's something wrong with the inter-province transportation formations in the lower province, it means people from the lower province can't come to the upper province and people from the upper province can't go to the lower province. In any case, I've never thought of going to a godforsaken place like the lower province. It has nothing to do with me if there's something wrong with the inter-province transportation formations in the lower province. Similar discussions could be heard all over the city of Sin. Most of them had the mentality of, it has nothing to do with me. After all, it did not matter to them whether they could go to the lower province or not. However, similar remarks were quickly crushed by a cruel reality. Do you really think it's as simple as us not being able to move to the lower district? Soon after, an even more shocking piece of news spread throughout Sin City without any warning. It was like a hurricane and a swarm of locusts that swept through the entire Sin City. This shocking news was spread by a group of rogue cultivators in Sin City. If there's really something wrong with the transportation formation in the lower province, it means there's something wrong with the Grand Ceiling formation left behind by our ancestors in the Dao Marshall Saint Land hundreds of thousands of years ago. You asked me what the Grand Ceiling formation from more than 100,000 years ago was? The Grand Ceiling formation is a formation that seals the land of exile. To be more precise, it exists to repair the gap in the space barrier between the Dao Marshall Saint Land and the land of exile. What's the land of exile? It started from the human devil era more than 100,000 years ago. The human devil era, the land of exile, the devil clans. Many people did not know about this in the past. However, now that the news had spread through Sin City, it caused a huge panic in Sin City. At this moment, many people finally found out. As it turned out, the Dao Marshall Saint Land had fallen into a dark era more than 100,000 years ago. That era was called the Human Devil Era. During that era, a group of devils had entered the Dao Marshall Saint Land from the land of exile through the gap in the space barrier. They carried out a large-scale massacre. Almost all those who were killed were devoured by them and turned into dried corpses. More than 90% of the devils relied on devouring the vital essence and blood of other living beings to strengthen themselves. The Human Devil Era? The land of exile? The devil clans? At the same time, Duan Lingtian also learned about the Human Devil Era, the land of exile, and the devil clans. There's no lack of powerhouses at the ninth form of the Saint Celestial stage in the devil clans. As for the inter-province transportation formation in the lower province, it shares the defensive formation in the Grand Ceiling formation. If the transportation formation in the lower province is damaged, it means the Grand Ceiling formation is damaged as well. It won't be able to seal the gap in the space barrier between the Dao Martial Saint Land and the land of exile. After learning about this, Duan Lingtian's expression turned graver and graver. Previously, when he found out he could not return to the lower province from the upper province, his first thought was that he would not be able to see his family and friends again. However, he was not worried about their safety at all. With his father and the Azure Cloud Mansion around, he believed the safety of his family and friends would not be a problem. However, all of this was under the premise that the Devil race did not invade. If that's the case, the Devil clans will invade the Dao Martial Saint Land from the land of exile. To be more precise, they'll invade the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. 100,000 years ago, the Dao Martial Saint Land wasn't divided into two. There were many powerhouses, and there were many powerhouses at the ninth form of the Saint Celestial stage. However, in the current lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, powerhouses at the quintessential Saint stage are as rare as phoenix feathers, let alone powerhouses at the Saint Celestial stage. If the Devil clans invade the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, I'm afraid none of the humans will survive. When Duan Lingtian thought about this, he was so anxious that he almost went crazy. His family and friends were all still in the lower district. If the Devil clans invaded, they would not be able to defend themselves with their strength. The Devil clans are invading the Dao Martial Saint Land again? They're invading the lower province, right? Although the upper province exists in the lower province and is surrounded by the lower province, it's an independent space and realm. If that's the case, the Devil clans won't be able to affect the upper province? That seems to be the case. To think I was worried about this. It seems like I was worried for nothing. If the Devil clans invade, the lower province is doomed. However, if the Devil clans really invade, it means the transportation formations in the lower province are destroyed. In that case, the Devil clans in the lower province won't be able to come to the upper province. I was planning to go to the lower province to have a look. Fortunately, I didn't go. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to return. At this moment, all over the city of Sin, there were all sorts of voices saying that they had gotten lucky. However, it did not take long before they were drowned out by another piece of cruel news. It won't affect the upper province? It won't be able to come to the upper province? I think you're dreaming. That's right. There's no lack of powerhouses at the ninth form of the Saint Celestial stage and formation experts in the Devil clans. They can repair the inter-province transportation formation in the lower province or set up a new one. At that time, they can easily invade the upper province. Do you really think there's no one in the Devil clans? How naive. As the cruel news spread, the people in Sin City began to feel threatened. They felt it was not safe even if they stayed in the upper province. It was only a matter of time before the Devil clans invaded the upper province. Now, I can only hope that there's another reason why the people from the upper province can't use the inter-province transportation formation to go to the lower province. Otherwise, not only will the lower province be doomed, but the upper province will be doomed as well. Just thinking about the human devil era is terrifying. I just hope that era never comes again. Just hearing about the Devil clans makes me shudder. I don't want to fight them. If it's possible, I don't want to see them for the rest of my life. The atmosphere in the city of Sin gradually became stifling. It did not take long for the oppressive atmosphere to spread and sweep out in all directions. As time passed, the news had spread to half of the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, causing everyone in the upper province to feel threatened. Many people even made their way to the inter-province transportation formations to see if they could not return to the lower province. Duan Lingtian was one of them. For an entire month, Duan Lingtian had made his way to the inter-province transportation formations near Sin City at his fastest speed. He had even made his way to the inter-province transportation formations near Sin City. However, he received the same answer. It was true that the inter-province transportation formations could no longer send people to the lower province. Could it be that there's something wrong with the lower province's inter-province transportation formations? Did the Devil clans really invade the lower province from the land of exile? Is the human devil era from hundreds of thousands of years ago really coming again? Duan Lingtian's heart sank when he thought about it. The more he thought about it, the more worried he became about the safety of his family and friends. However, there was nothing he could do no matter how worried he was. At this moment, Duan Lingtian felt a sense of helplessness in his heart. Hualao, is there really no other way? Duan Lingtian asked Hualao bitterly. A few days ago, he had asked Hualao if there was a way to return to the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land without using the inter-province transportation formation. Hualao had given him an answer. Only after he had broken through to the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage and passed the heavenly tribulation would he be able to tear open the space barrier between the upper province and the lower province and enter the lower province before he ascended. However, it was not realistic for him to do that now. Even if he had a violet innate spiritual root, it would still take a long time for him to break through to the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage, let alone an indigo innate spiritual root. Distant water could not quench a present thirst. At that time, there would be no one left alive in the lower province. Chapter 21:10. Urgent, urgent, urgent. At this moment, Duan Lingtian felt like he was about to lose his mind. Many people in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land were also on the verge of losing their minds. Once the devil clans invaded the upper province, they might not even be able to survive. At that time, they could no longer just hide. Once the human-devil era arrived, the devil clans would wreak havoc in every corner of the upper province like locusts. As humans, no matter where they hid, they would eventually be found. Damn it! How can there be creatures like the devil clans in this world? If it weren't for this incident, I wouldn't have known that devil cultivators originated from the devil clans. The human-devil era and the devil clans are too terrifying. I really hope it's just a guess and the inter-province transportation formation in the lower province isn't destroyed. Similar discussions could be heard everywhere in Sin City. As time passed, the people began to relax. Although they were still worried about the devil clans invading the upper province, they were no longer as worried as before. No matter what, the devil clans had not invaded the upper province yet. Moreover, it was just a guess. It was possible that the inter-province transportation formation in the lower province was not destroyed. However, due to some other reason, the inter-province transportation formation in the upper province could not be used to travel to the lower province. Naturally, even if all the guesses were true, there was nothing they could do now. They could only wait. It's useless to be anxious now. I can only hope it's just a guess and that the situation won't really happen. Duan Lingtian prayed in his heart when he returned to Sin City. At the same time, he gradually calmed down. As time passed, the atmosphere in Sin City began to change. The originally anxious crowd gradually calmed down. Naturally, most of them only appeared calm on the surface, but they were still worried inwardly. However, with the influx of people from the major forces in Sin City, the atmosphere in Sin City became tense again. The people from the major forces came to Sin City to collect all kinds of resources. Their purpose for collecting supplies was also obvious. It was to prevent the devil clans from invading. They had to prepare a large amount of resources in advance so that they could defend their positions when the devil clans invaded. Before they ran out of resources, they could prepare for a battle with the invading devil clans. This was also the best choice. Recently, many people from the Zhuangzi Buddhism have come to collect resources from all over the city of Sin. They're even offering double the price of ordinary forces. The other forces have also increased their prices. But even so, no one is willing to sell their resources to them. That's right. Although it was still uncertain whether the demons would invade, it was still necessary to take precautions. At this time, only a fool would hand over the resources in his hands. In a restaurant in the city of Sin, many of the customers were in a heated discussion. Based on his words, he scoffed at the actions of the major forces, including Zhuangzi Buddhism. Zhuangzi Buddhism? Duan Lingtian, who was sitting by the window, could not help but narrow his eyes when he heard the discussion of the group of customers. A cold gleam flashed in his eyes. When he heard the words Zhuangzi Buddhism, the first person he thought of was Elder Xiezong of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, who had snatched his devil seal tablet away from him. Sometimes, the world was just this simple. Excuse me, I just saw Elder Xiezong of the Zhuangzi Buddhism in the city earlier. A dringer's voice entered Duan Ling Tian's ears, causing him to open his eyes immediately. There was a cold gleam in his eyes that was as cold as a blade. Xiezong was in Sin City? At this moment, Duan Ling Tian felt as though he had seen the hope of revenge. Xiezong? The son of the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 kings of the Zhuangzi Buddhism? Yes, that's him. Speaking of him, he's really lucky. I heard he went to the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land and snatched the Devil Seal tablet from someone from the lower province. The Devil Seal tablet can only deal with some devil cultivators in the past. However, if the devil clans invade the upper province, the Devil Seal tablet will be very effective. It is said that the power displayed by the demon sealing tombstone when it was used to kill the devil race was much stronger than when it was used to kill ordinary devil cultivators. If sect leader Xiezong of the Zhuangzi Buddhism uses the Devil Seal tablet, even a devil at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage won't be able to do anything to him. If the human devil era comes again, the Devil Seal tablet will become the most useful super saint weapon among the 10 great saint weapons on the 10 great saint weapons ranking. Even if it's not ranked in the top 3 of the 10 great saint weapons ranking, it's destined to shine during the human devil era because of its ability to suppress devils. After the group of customers in the restaurant mentioned Xiezong, they shifted the topic to the Devil Seal tablet, one of the 10 great saint weapons on the 10 great saint weapons ranking. They did not change the topic for a long time. They had been talking about the Devil Seal tablet for a long time. The Devil Seal tablet? Duan Lingtian's expression turned grave when he heard the customers mentioning the Devil Seal tablet. The Devil Seal tablet was originally the super saint weapon in his possession. It was only because Xiezong had snatched it from him that he lost it. Xiezong, I heard you left Zhuangzi Buddhism and came to Sin City. Since you're here, don't even think about going back. Duan Lingtian's eyes turned even colder. Anyone who was stared at by him would feel as though they had fallen into an ice cave. I can only hope the Devil Seal tablet is still with him. If that's the case, I can kill him and take back the Devil Seal tablet that belongs to me. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Naturally, he knew it was impossible. After all, the Devil Seal tablet was a super saint weapon. After Xiezong returned to Zhuangzi Buddhism, he had most likely passed it to his father, the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 imperial kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism. The 4 imperial kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism were as famous as the 3 great guardians of Zoroastrianism. All of them were at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage or above. However, it doesn't matter if the Devil Seal tablet is with him or not. Since he came to Sin City and delivered himself to me, not only would I be letting myself down, but I would also be letting Elder Ku and the 10 black armored soldiers of the Azure Cloud Mansion down if I don't kill him. The killing intent in Duan Lingtian's eyes intensified as he thought to himself. Then, Duan Lingtian paid the bill and left the restaurant. After he left the restaurant, he began to search for Xiezong's whereabouts. 15 minutes had passed, but he found nothing. Half an hour had passed, but he still found nothing. After an hour, he finally found Xiezong's whereabouts. Xiezong's cultivation base has already broken through to the 3rd form of the Saint Celestial stage. Apart from that, Elder Zhuangzi Buddhism, who's at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage, is with him. Although he leaves him occasionally, he's not too far away. If you kill him directly, there's a high chance you'll succeed. However, it'll alert Elder Zhuangzi Buddhism, who's at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage. He might even kill you. Hua Lao's voice entered Duan Lingtian's ears, reminding Duan Lingtian not to act rashly. Earlier, when Duan Lingtian asked Duan Lingtian to investigate Xiezong and the people from the Zhuangzi Buddhism who were near Xiezong, Duan Lingtian was anxious. He could hear the impatience in Duan Lingtian's tone. It was as though he could not wait to kill Xiezong. It's better for you to wait for the right time. Wait until they're further away from each other before you make a move. Hua Lao reminded Duan Lingtian again. It was as though he was afraid Duan Lingtian would act rashly and kill Xiezong. Don't worry, Hua Lao. Xiezong isn't worth my life. When Duan Lingtian heard Elder was concerned, he felt a surge of warmth in his heart. 3rd form of the Saint Celestial stage. According to Hua Lao, he's only at the early stage of the 3rd form of the Saint Celestial stage. Unknowingly, a sneer appeared on the corner of Duan Lingtian's mouth. Xiezong, It seems like you've been making no progress at all. Perhaps, even in your dreams, you've never imagined that the person who was like an ant in your eyes not long ago has the strength to kill you with just a blow. Just like what Duan Lingtian had said to Hualao, he did not think Xiezong was worth his life. However, in the next 2 hours, Duan Lingtian became more and more anxious when he saw Xiezong, and the Zhuangzi Buddhism elder at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage kept moving from place to purchase resources. Elder Duan Lingtian from the Zhuangzi Buddhism elder keeps moving closer to Xiezong. He must be trying to protect Xiezong. Soon after, Duan Lingtian came to a conclusion. It seems like there's no point in waiting any longer. I have to take the initiative to attack, Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Naturally, Duan Lingtian was not impulsive enough to make a move on Xiezong. He might be able to kill Xiezong in just one move. However, after he killed Xiezong, he would not be able to escape from the Zhuangzi Buddhism elder at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage. He would have to exhaust almost all of the Sun Saint energy in his body to kill Xiezong with the Jasper Celestial Sword. Even if he did not exhaust any of his Sun Saint energy, he would not be a match for Elder Duan Lingtian from the Zhuangzi Buddhism elder at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage. He could kill Xiezong in just one move. Similarly, Elder Duan Lingtian from the Zhuangzi Buddhism elder would be able to kill him in just one move. I have to think of a way to lure Elder Zhuangzi Buddhism away or make Xiezong distance himself from Elder Zhuangzi Buddhism. That would give me a chance to kill him, Duan Lingtian thought to himself as he racked his brains to come up with a plan. I've got it. Heaven rewards those who work hard. After about 15 minutes, Duan Lingtian finally came up with a plan. Chapter 21:11. Recently, news of the devil clans from the land of exile, invading the lower province of the Tao Martial Saintland, had spread to the Black Kshetra sect. Moreover, news that the devil clans might invade the upper province at any time had spread to the Black Kshetra sect. Everyone in the Zhuangzi Buddhism was shocked when they learned about this. However, compared to the people in the upper province, the Zhuangzi Buddhism was much calmer. No matter what, the Zhuangzi Buddhism was one of the 3 great sects in the Tao Martial Saintland. It was one of the strongest forces in the Tao Martial Saintland. Ordinary people might be afraid of the devil clans and feel uneasy because of the appearance of the devil clans. However, to the people in the Zhuangzi Buddhism, although the devil clans were terrifying, the Zhuangzi Buddhism was not weak either. They could fight the devil clans with all their might. If the devil clans invaded the upper province, the Zhuangzi Buddhism, one of the strongest forces in the Tao Martial Saintland, would become the last hope of mankind along with the other 2 great sects. Regardless of whether the devil clans would invade the upper province in the future, the Zhuangzi Buddhism was prepared to make a move as soon as possible. For this reason, the Zhuangzi Buddhism elders came to Sin City to purchase resources. Xiezong was one of the Zhuangzi Buddhism elders who came to Sin City. Humph. There are fewer and fewer people who are willing to sell resources to us. Xiezong, who was flying side by side with another Black Kshetra sect's elder, said in a deep voice with a grave expression on his face, "If it's me, we'll just kill those who refuse to sell their resources to us. If the devil clans invade the upper province in the future, the Zhuangzi Buddhism will be the main force. The sectless cultivators in Sin City are only a bunch of cannon fodder. It's a waste to leave the resources to them." Killing intent could be seen on Xiezong's face when he finished speaking. Elder Xiezong, even if that's the case, it'll be bad if we kill them. The Zhuangzi Buddhism elder next to Xiezong shook his head and said, "No matter what, those people are sectless cultivators. In Sin City, sectless cultivators at or above the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage don't care about the fights between sectless cultivators. However, if we, the Black Kshetra sect's elders, kill the sectless cultivators in Sin City, there's a 90% chance that they'll kill us." The Zhuangzi Buddhism elder had a solemn expression on his face. "Elder Chu, are there so many sectless cultivators at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage or above in Sin City?" Xiezong Chu Li elder. "I'm afraid the number of cultivators at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage or above in Sin City is no less than our Zhuangzi Buddhism. Otherwise, do you think our Zhuangzi Buddhism would allow such a chaotic city to exist so close to our Zhuangzi Buddhism's estate?" The Zhuangzi Buddhism elder who was walking next to Xiezong shook his head again. A hint of dread could be seen in his eyes. Xiezong was speechless when he heard this. The Zhuangzi Buddhism elder next to him was not an ordinary Zhuangzi Buddhism elder. He was a Zhuangzi Buddhism elder who was at the fifth form of the Saint Celestial stage. Xiezong Chu believed the Zhuangzi Buddhism elder's words. At this moment, Xiezong and the other Zhuangzi Buddhism elder next to Xiezong did not notice that someone was staring at them from afar. Far away, there was a person staring at them without blinking. This person was none other than Duan Lingtian, who wanted to kill Xiezong. Xiezong, an elder of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, had entered the lower province of the Dao Martial Saintland and arrived at the Azure Cloud Mansion. Not only did he snatch the Super Saint weapon, the Devil Seal Tablet, but he had also killed Xiezong's father's right-hand man, Elder Ku, and a group of black armored guards. At that time, Duan Lingtian had regarded Xiezong as his mortal enemy. Today, Duan Lingtian saw Xiezong again in Sin City. He was certain this was the best opportunity to kill Xiezong. Otherwise, he did not know when Xiezong would return to the Zhuangzi Buddhism. After all, the group of Zhuangzi Buddhism elders, including Xiezong, had been purchasing resources from all over Sin City in preparation for the devil clans from the land of exile who had invaded the upper province from the lower province. If Xiezong returned, he would not be able to leave the Zhuangzi Buddhism for the time being. For this reason, Duan Lingtian did not want to miss this opportunity. I'll just have to wait for them to separate. As soon as they separate, I'll be able to carry out my plan. Duan Lingtian waited silently as he stared at Xiezong and Duan Lingtian from afar. As the strongest weapons specialist on Earth in his past life, Duan Lingtian's tracking ability was extraordinary. Although the Zhuangzi Buddhism elder next to Xiezong was a powerhouse at the fifth form of the Saint Celestial stage, he still did not notice Duan Lingtian spying on him. About 15 minutes later, perhaps God had heard Duan Lingtian's thoughts. The Zhuangzi Buddhism elder next to Xiezong finally separated from him. At the same time, the distance between them increased. When the distance between them reached a certain distance, the Zhuangzi Buddhism elder at the fifth form of the Saint Celestial stage would take the initiative to move closer to Xiezong. It was as though he was intentionally keeping a certain distance from Xiezong, so Xiezong would not leave the range of his divine consciousness. Xiezong was the son of the Golden Lion King, one of the four kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism. Since Xiezong had come with him, it was only natural that he had to keep an eye on Xiezong. Otherwise, if something happened to Xiezong, he would not be able to bear the consequences even if he returned to the Zhuangzi Buddhism. Although he was at the fifth form of the Saint Celestial stage, he was like an ant in front of the Golden Lion King. This was because the Golden Lion King was a Zhuangzi Buddhism Karmapa, and all the Zhuangzi Buddhism Karmapa were at the seventh form of the Saint Celestial stage or above. This is the time. Soon after, Duan Lingtian discovered there was quite a distance between them, so he immediately made a move as well. Naturally, when he made his move, his speed was neither too fast nor too slow. It was similar to an ordinary early quintessential Saint stage martial cultivator. So, soon after, Duan Lingtian arrived near Xiezong. He flew past Xiezong when he was about 10 meters away. Duan Lingtian's approach naturally attracted Xiezong's attention. However, when he saw Duan Lingtian's speed, he did not even look at Duan Lingtian. He thought Duan Lingtian was only an early quintessential Saint stage martial cultivator who posed no threat to him. Whoosh! Just as Duan Lingtian was about to pass by Xiezong, Duan Lingtian suddenly raised his hand as though he had caught something. Then, he came to an abrupt halt. Xiezong felt as though he was facing a formidable enemy when he saw Duan Lingtian's actions. He immediately came to a halt and stared at Duan Lingtian fiercely. He extended his divine consciousness in an attempt to probe Duan Lingtian's cultivation base through Duan Lingtian's soul. Early quintessential Saint stage? Xiezong was relieved when he discovered Duan Lingtian's cultivation base. He felt he had been overly cautious. A mere early quintessential Saint stage powerhouse was not a threat to him at all. He didn't stop because of me. Xiezong shook his head when he saw Duan Lingtian did not even look at him. He was about to leave when he saw Duan Lingtian had come to a halt. At this moment, Azura Saber, Duan Lingtian cried out in surprise. Xiezong's eyes lit up immediately. Azura Saber? Wasn't that one of the super saint weapons on the 10 great saint weapons ranking? Why would this early quintessential saint stage disciple suddenly say Azura Saber? Was there a reason behind this? Xiezong discovered something else. The early quintessential saint stage disciple who did not look at Xiezong initially glanced at his surroundings secretly after he cried out, Azura Saber. When he saw Xiezong, horror dawned on his face. Then, he saw the Azura Saber. After taking a deep breath, the early quintessential saint stage disciple turned and headed west. He mentioned the Azura Saber first, and now he's heading west? He seemed to have raised his hand earlier. He must have received a voice transmission jade token. Could it be that the voice transmission jade token contains news about the Azura Saber? It said that the Azura Saber appeared in the western region some time ago. Now that he's heading to the western region, many thoughts appeared in Xiezong's mind at once. Let's follow him and see. Perhaps he really has news about the Azura Saber. If I can obtain the Azura Saber and give it to Father, I'm sure Father will be happy. A hint of greed flashed in Xiezong's eyes as he followed the early quintessential saint stage disciple whom he had his eyes on. The purple-clad young man had dashing eyebrows and bright eyes. He was a handsome young man. I feel like I've seen this person somewhere before. Xiezong, who was following the purple-clad young man to the west, found the purple-clad young man's figure familiar. However, he could not recall where he had seen this person before. However, he was certain this person was not a stranger to him. He had never seen this purple-clad young man before. Otherwise, it was impossible for him not to recognize him. Elder Chu, I have something to attend to. I'll meet you later. As he followed the purple-clad young man, Xiezong sent a voice transmission to Elder Zhuanzi Buddhism, who was at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage through divine consciousness. Xiezong immediately left the detection range of Elder Chu's divine consciousness. He did not want Elder Zhuanzi Buddhism, who was at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage, to know about the Azura Saber. Otherwise, he would not be able to obtain the Azura Saber. Although Elder Zhuanzi Buddhism could not compare to his father in terms of status and strength in Zoroastrianism, Elder Chu was still a Saint Celestial stage disciple. However, the Black Kshetra sect's elder had a Karmapa as well. If he gave the Azura Saber to the Karmapa, it would have nothing to do with him and his father. That was not what he wanted. Chapter 21:12. Chu Tansheng was the Zhuanzi Buddhism elder who had parted ways with Xiezong not long ago. His cultivation base was at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Although he was far away from Xiezong, his divine consciousness was constantly on Xiezong, keeping an eye on Xiezong's safety. If Xiezong was in danger, Chu Tansheng would immediately sense it and rush to Xiezong's side to save him. However, Chu Tansheng knew nothing about Xiezong's surroundings. This was because the focus of his divine sense was always on Xiezong. Only when Xiezong had any unusual movements would he be able to detect it. As for who appeared or what happened near Xiezong, as long as it did not affect Xiezong's safety, Chu Tansheng would not be alarmed, because he had no time to be distracted. Elder Chu, I have something to attend to. I'll meet you later. Suddenly, Xiezong's voice came through Chu Tansheng's divine sense, causing Chu Tansheng to be stunned. When Chu Tansheng regained his senses, he discovered Xiezong had left his divine consciousness. Xiezong had already left the detection range of his divine sense. Even if he spread out his divine sense at the right time and focused on the surrounding situation, he still did not discover Xiezong's whereabouts. Xiezong is really spoiled by the Golden Lion King. Doesn't he know that danger lurks everywhere in the City of Sin? Chu Tansheng's expression darkened when he realized that even though he had extended his divine consciousness to search for Xiezong's whereabouts, he still could not find anything. I hope he's fine. Otherwise, the Golden Lion King will kill me when I return to the Zhuanzi Buddhism. Among the 4 kings of the Zhuanzi Buddhism, the Golden Lion King was the most hot-tempered one. None of those who died in the Golden Lion King's hands had a complete corpse. Let's continue searching. When Chu Tansheng thought about how terrifying the Golden Lion King was, he no longer had the mood to purchase resources. He began to search for Xiezong in Sin City. Unfortunately, he began his search in the east. When he couldn't find any trace of Xiezong in the east of Sin City, Xiezong had already left Sin City with the purple-clad young man and arrived at the west gate of Sin City. The Azura Saber. The reason Xiezong had set his eyes on the purple-clad young man and followed him out of Sin City was because of the purple-clad young man's cry of surprise. It made Xiezong realize that the purple-clad young man had obtained clues about the Azura Saber. The purple-clad young man had turned west in time. This confirmed Chu Tanshang's suspicion. For this reason, he had followed the purple-clad young man. His target was the Azura Saber, one of the 10 Super Saint weapons rankings, 10 Super Saint weapons. The purple-clothed youth that Xiezong was staring at was none other than Duan was. It's a success. When Duan Ling Tian discovered he had successfully lured Xiezong out, he could not help but feel excited even though he was mentally prepared. Was he elders to kill? Was he's? Old was he was Buddhism, Xieli Dunin, was Long's long. This was the only way he could be sure Xiezong would not be killed by Elder Zhuanzi Buddhism after he killed Xiezong. If he wanted Xiezong to leave Elder Zhuanzi Buddhism's side, he would need something that Xiezong was unwilling to share. At this moment, Duan Lingtian thought about the Azura Saber. The Azura Saber was a Super Saint weapon. It was ranked on the 10 Great Saint Weapons ranking. The reason Duan Lingtian brought it up was because he had heard a piece of news in Sin City some time ago. Not long ago, the Super Saint weapon, the Azura Saber, had appeared in the western region. Now, almost everyone in Sin City knew about this news. Since the Zhuanzi Buddhism was right next to Sin City, they must have heard about it as well. For this reason, Duan Lingtian was certain Xiezong had heard about it as well. Therefore, he planned to use the Super Saint weapon, the Azura Saber, to lure Xiezong out of Sin City. He wanted Xiezong to leave Elder Zhuanzi Buddhism's side. Before they left Sin City, Hua Lao had informed Duan Lingtian that Xiezong had killed Xiezong. Xiezong had left Elder Zhuanzi Buddhism's side. Now that they had left Sin City, Duan Lingtian knew it was time for him to make his move. However, he was not in a hurry to make his move. Instead, he continued to head west. The further I go, the safer I'll be. This was Duan Lingtian's thought. Xiezong, you can only blame yourself for being too greedy even if you die today. There are only 10 Super Saint weapons in the Dao Martial Saint Land. You're not satisfied with just one Super Saint weapon, and you want a second one? Duan Lingtian snorted inwardly as he continued to head west. Do you really think you're favored by God? Duan Lingtian knew very well that Xiezong was the one who had killed Xiezong. The reason Xiezong had followed him alone was because he wanted to take the Azura Saber for himself. This time, he had taken advantage of one of the weaknesses in human nature to lure Xiezong out. At this moment, it seemed like Xiezong was an insatiable person. When they were about 10,000 miles away from Sin City, Duan Lingtian finally came to a halt. He immediately mobilized the Sun Saint energy in his body and released it without holding back. Devouring Tactic. Duan Lingtian instantly cast the divine ability, the Devouring Tactic, and caused the Sun Saint energy he released to form a whirlpool. As soon as the whirlpool appeared, it began to devour the heaven and earth spirit energy in the surrounding area. At the same time, the Sun Saint energy in Duan Lingtian's body rose at a ridiculous speed. In the beginning, Duan Lingtian's Sun Saint energy was comparable to the saint origin of a powerhouse at the first form of the Saint Celestial stage. However, after casting the divine ability, the Devouring Tactic, Duan Lingtian's Sun Saint energy had risen again. Although it did not rise to the saint origin of a powerhouse at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage, it was very close to the saint origin of a powerhouse at the second form of the Saint Celestial stage. After breaking through to the early quintessential saint stage, my Sun Saint energy has risen a lot as well. Now, even if I don't use the Jasper Celestial Sword, ordinary powerhouses at the third form of the Saint Celestial stage are no match for me with the various divine abilities and techniques I've mastered. Duan Lingtian felt his body was filled with explosive energy when he sensed the Sun Saint energy in his body that had become extremely powerful after being enhanced by the divine ability, the Devouring Tactic. He could not wait to find someone and fight for 300 rounds. If I use the Jasper Celestial Sword, no one below the fourth form of the Saint Celestial stage is a match for me. Even an ordinary powerhouse at the fourth form of the Saint Celestial stage wouldn't be able to escape death if I used the Jasper Celestial Sword. Duan Lingtian's confidence grew when he thought of this. It's just as well. I don't want Xiezong to die so easily. Now that I've broken through to the early quintessential saint stage, I can slowly toy with him with the various divine abilities and techniques I have. I'm going to let him have a good taste of what regret and despair are like. When Duan Ling Tian recalled Elder Ku and the black armored army soldiers who were killed by Xiezong in such a domineering manner in the Azure Cloud Mansion, fury rose in his heart. It was as though a prairie fire was about to burst out at any moment. Why did he stop all of a sudden? What's he doing? Why does it feel like his energy has undergone such a huge change in just a blink of an eye? Did he cast an assist-type divine ability earlier? Xiezong, who had been tailing Duan Lingtian, came to a halt when he saw Duan Lingtian had stopped moving. Soon after, he noticed the strange movement in Duan Lingtian's body. In just a blink of an eye, the purple-clad young man whose cultivation base was only at the early quintessential saint stage possessed energy that was even stronger than the saint origin of an ordinary powerhouse at the second form of the saint celestial stage. Although it was not as strong as the saint origin of a powerhouse at the third form of the saint celestial stage, it was not much different. Looks like this guy seems to have quite a few secrets on him. Even then, Xiezong did not feel any sense of danger. After all, even after Duan Lingtian had cast all sorts of techniques, his strength was still weaker than his. Xiezong had not even cast any techniques yet. He was confident he could defeat Duan Lingtian if he cast all his divine abilities. Xiezong. However, just as Xiezong was immersed in his thoughts, a thunderous voice rang out beside his ear. You're right. Xiezong found the voice familiar. It was as though he had heard it before. However, he could not recall where he had heard it from. When Xiezong regained his senses, he saw the purple-clad young man had turned around. He did not know when the purple-clad young man whom he had been tailing had turned around and soared through the clouds. He was standing not far away from Xiezong, staring at him. You noticed me? Xiezong's expression changed slightly when he realized Duan Lingtian had noticed him. Moreover, Duan Lingtian seemed to know him. Otherwise, how could Duan Lingtian know his name? I intentionally lured you out. Do you think I wouldn't notice you were tailing me? Duan Lingtian said disdainfully as he stared at Xiezong coldly. You lured me out? Xiezong would have lived in vain if he still could not figure out what was going on when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. As it turned out, Duan Lingtian had mentioned the super saint weapon, the Azura Saber, to lure him out. Xiezong's expression darkened as he looked around warily. He thought Duan Lingtian had other helpers since he did not think Duan Lingtian alone was a match for him. There's no need to look around. There's only the two of us here. Duan Lingtian, naturally, knew what Xiezong was thinking when he saw Xiezong's reaction. He could not help but sneer. Chapter 21:13. It's just the two of us? Xiezong did not believe Duan Lingtian's words. He continued to look around. He extended his divine consciousness and probed every corner in the surroundings. It was as though he would not rest until he found the person hiding in the dark. Duan Lingtian was speechless when he saw Xiezong's actions. However, he did not say anything. His gaze gradually turned cold. Xiezong, who was being stared at, felt as though he had fallen into an ice cave. After a shudder, he regained his senses and looked at Duan Lingtian. At this moment, he could clearly feel the killing intent rising from Duan Lingtian's body. Who are you? Why did you lure me out? Xiezong asked in a deep voice. At the same time, he was still vigilant of his surroundings. He was afraid someone would appear from the side and attack him. Whether it was the figure or the voice of the purple-clad young man before him, he felt a sense of familiarity. It was as though he had seen or heard of him before. However, he could not recall where he had seen or heard of him. He had no clue at all. However, he was certain that he had never seen this purple-clad young man before. At the very least, he had never seen this purple-clad young man's face. Moreover, he was certain there were no signs of disguise on this person's face. Due to this reason, he was extremely puzzled. Who was this purple-clad young man? Why did he lure him out? Why did it give him such a familiar feeling? Who am I? Duan Lingtian laughed when he heard Xiezong's question. His laughter gradually became louder and louder. In the end, he laughed heartily as though he had gone mad. "What are you laughing about?" Duan Lingtian's laughter sent chills down Xiezong's spine. He immediately cried out, "Brat, do you know who I am? I'm a Xian. I know you're an elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism. I also know your father is the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism." Before Xiezong could finish speaking, Duan Lingtian, who had stopped laughing, mercilessly interrupted him. "If this is all you want to say to me, there's no need for you to do so. This is because I know everything about you. Otherwise, why didn't I lure others out, but you?" In the end, Duan Lingtian took a deep look at Xiezong as a mocking smile appeared on his face. "You? Who are you?" Xiezong's expression changed rapidly, and his tone became increasingly gloomy. At this time, even if he did not feel that the purple-clothed young man in front of him was a match for him, he still felt an inexplicable sense of danger. He thought that this sense of crisis was given to him by the purple-clothed young man's hidden helper. Therefore, his divine sense continued to extend and spread out as he continued to investigate the surroundings. "Xiezong, open your eyes wide and take a good look. Who am I?" Duan Lingtian's voice suddenly changed, and at the same time, the muscles on his face began to contort. In the end, in front of Xiezong, it was a completely different face. And this face was also his true appearance. Xiezong's pupils constricted abruptly when he saw Duan Lingtian's true appearance. His face was filled with astonishment and disbelief, and his throat trembled as if it was stuck in his throat, causing him to be unable to make a sound for a long time. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. When Duan Lingtian revealed his true appearance, Xiezong, naturally, recognized Duan Lingtian. Previously, he had snatched the Devil Seal Tablet, one of the 10 great Super Saint weapons on the 10 great Saint weapons ranking, from this person in front of him. If it was not for the fact that Duan Lingtian was a 9-clawed dragon warrior, he would have killed him back then. Naturally, he did not kill Duan Lingtian back then because he did not think Duan Lingtian would be able to achieve much even if he was a 9-clawed dragon warrior. When he was in the Azure Cloud Mansion, he had used his divine consciousness to check Duan Lingtian's innate spiritual root. He was certain Duan Lingtian only possessed a yellow innate spiritual root. In his opinion, although a person with a yellow innate spiritual root was considered to have a high innate talent in the lower province, it was not worth mentioning in the upper province. He did not think Duan Lingtian was a threat, and he was worried killing Duan Lingtian, who was a 9-clawed dragon warrior, would bring trouble to himself. Due to this reason, he did not kill Duan Lingtian. "Duan Lingtian, how's this possible? How's it possible that it's you?" Xiezong finally regained his senses. When he regained his senses, he could not help but gasp. Then, he looked at Duan Lingtian in shock and disbelief. His eyes shone with disbelief as he looked at Duan Lingtian. He did not expect this at all. After casting his divine ability, this purple-clad young man whose strength was almost on par with his was actually Duan Lingtian, whom he had met in the Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province. In the past, in his eyes, Duan Lingtian possessed a yellow innate spiritual root. Moreover, it was a light yellow innate spiritual root. Even if he came to the upper province from the lower province, he would only be at the peak of the exemplary saint stage at most. It would be difficult for him to break through to the quintessential saint stage. Even if he was lucky enough to break through to the quintessential saint stage, it would be difficult for him to make any more progress in the future. In the eyes of a saint celestial stage powerhouse like him, even if Duan Lingtian grew stronger in the future, he would still be an ant that was not worth mentioning and posed no threat to him at all. However, he had never expected that in just 1 or 2 years, Duan Lingtian, the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province, who was like an ant in his eyes, had actually grown so strong that his strength was almost on par with him. "Xiezong." Duan Lingtian ignored Xiezong's shock. He looked at Xiezong with an increasingly cold gaze. He said in a deep voice, "That day, after you killed Elder Ku of my Azure Cloud Mansion and took away my Devil Seal Tablet, you went back on your word and said you wanted to kill everyone in the Azure Cloud Mansion. At that time, I swore in my heart that if I, Duan Lingtian, don't kill you in this lifetime, I'm not a man. Today, It's time for me to fulfill my oath. In the beginning, Duan Lingtian's voice was extremely cold. However, in the end, his voice was no longer cold. It was strangely calm. However, the murderous intent on his body continued to rise. Killing intent could be seen in the depths of his eyes. Ha 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 ha. When Xie Zong heard Duan Lingtian's words and confirmed that there was no one hiding in the dark, he could not help but laugh maniacally. Duan Lingtian watched on calmly. After a short moment, Xie Zong's laughter stopped, and he revealed a disdainful expression as he looked at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, although I don't know what fortuitous encounter you obtained, to actually be able to walk to this step with such a lousy natural talent in the martial Tao in a short 1 or 2 years. However, do you really think you can defeat me now? Although Xie Zong was shocked and in disbelief by Duan Lingtian's improvement in just 1 or 2 years, he knew he was already clear. However, he was clearly aware that what was done could not be undone. No matter how shocked he was, it was useless. For this reason, he managed to calm down. At the same time, he could faintly guess. Duan Lingtian must have relied on his current strength and the ability to transform into a 9-clawed dragon warrior to challenge him. With the strength Duan Lingtian currently displayed, it might be difficult for him to defeat Xie Zong if he transformed into a 9-clawed dragon warrior. However, there was a high chance he could fight Xie Zong to a draw. Even then, Xie Zong was not afraid at all. He, Xie Zong, was the only son of the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 great kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism. Apart from his strength, how could he not rely on anything else? If he transformed into a 9-clawed dragon warrior, I should be able to fight him to a draw at most. However, what's the harm in playing with him? When I'm tired of playing with him, I'll use the voice transmission Jade token to inform Elder Chu to come over. Even if he's stronger than me, I won't be able to wait for Elder Chu to come over. If he really pushes me too far, I'll send him to hell with just a Dao talisman. When he thought up to here, Xie Zong's heart calmed down, and he no longer had any fear towards Duan Lingtian. You'll find out soon enough whether I've defeated you or not, Duan Lingtian said nonchalantly. At the same time, his body suddenly jolted. In just a blink of an eye, vast and majestic Sun Saint energy surged out of Duan Lingtian's body and transformed into a pair of flaming wings on his back. The wings were extremely realistic. The flaming wings seemed to raise the temperature of the air by a few degrees. Golden Crow's wings. This was the movement divine ability Duan Lingtian had cast. To be more precise, it was a high-grade movement divine ability. You're the prodigy of Zoroastrianism, Duan Lingtian? As soon as Duan Lingtian cast his movement divine ability and formed a pair of golden crow's wings on his back, Xie Zong, who was looking at Duan Lingtian with disdain, cried out in surprise. If one listened carefully, they would be able to tell that Xie Zong's voice was trembling. Xie Zong's voice trembled slightly when he spoke. Upon seeing this, Xie Zong recalled the assist-type divine ability that Duan Lingtian had cast earlier. He could not help but recall the new prodigy of Zoroastrianism who had recently become famous in the Tao martial saint land. Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian was a prodigy of Zoroastrianism who had recently risen to prominence. Not long after his rise to prominence, he had defeated Bu Hong and replaced him as the second prodigy of Zoroastrianism. Moreover, he was ranked at the 421st place on the Supreme Saint ranking. When Duan Lingtian, the prodigy of Zoroastrianism, became famous, news of him mastering 4 high-grade divine abilities spread like wildfire in the upper province of the Tao martial saint land, shocking everyone. It was not unusual for a powerhouse from the older generation to master 4 high-grade divine abilities. However, as a prodigy of Zoroastrianism, Duan Lingtian, who was one of the younger generation of Zoroastrianism, had mastered 4 high-grade divine abilities. This was extremely rare in the history of the Tao martial saint land. For this reason, news of Duan Lingtian mastering 4 high-grade divine abilities had spread in the upper province of the Tao martial saint land. Xie Zong, who was from the Zhuangzi Buddhism, had also heard about it. Golden Crow's wings. Chapter 21:14. When Xie Zong saw Duan Lingtian casting the divine ability, the Golden Crow's wings, he instantly confirmed his other identity. He was the second heavenly pride of Zoroastrianism, Duan Lingtian. Although he had seen the portrait of the Duan Lingtian from Zoroastrianism, Xiezong did not recognize Duan Lingtian. The appearance of that Duan Lingtian was different from the appearance of the current Duan Lingtian, as well as the appearance of the Duan Lingtian just now. Moreover, the people of Zoroastrianism also confirmed that Duan Lingtian was not in disguise. However, after witnessing Duan Lingtian use a mysterious secret technique to disguise himself, he could easily guess that Duan Lingtian had also changed his appearance when he was in Zoroastrianism. However, he still used the name Duan Lingtian. I didn't expect you to recognize me as the Duan Lingtian from Zoroastrianism with just 2 divine abilities. Hearing Xiezong's exclamation, Duan Lingtian knew that Xiezong recognized him as the Duan Lingtian from Zoroastrianism. Eating alone, he did not show too much surprise. After all, he had already displayed 2 divine abilities in front of Xiezong. At this time, if Xiezong still did not connect him with the Duan Lingtian from Zoroastrianism, it would mean that Xiezong was too ignorant or slow to react. Of course, the reason why Xiezong only reacted now was because the news that the Duan Lingtian from Zoroastrianism was a 9-clawed dragon warrior was only circulated within Zoroastrianism. It was not widely circulated outside. In fact, this news had also spread from Zoroastrianism. However, because not many people outside believed it, it did not spread, let alone to the Zhuangzi Buddhism of the central region. The reason they did not believe it was because the identity of a 9-clawed dragon warrior was too illusory. To the people in the Dao martial Saintland, a 9-clawed dragon warrior was a legendary existence. It was elusive, and one could only dream of it but not reach it. For this reason, Xiezong did not know that the Duan Lingtian from Zoroastrianism knew how to transform into a 9-clawed dragon warrior. Otherwise, he would have already confirmed it. The Duan Lingtian from Zoroastrianism was Duan, the young mansion master of the Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province whom he had snatched the Devil Seal tablet away from. You didn't expect this, and neither did I. Xiezong's eyes turned cold as he said in a deep voice, "If I knew you would grow to such an extent, I wouldn't have held back in the Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province." Hold back? Duan Lingtian could not help but laugh when he heard Xiezong's words. Xiezong, if I'm not mistaken, you didn't kill me because you were afraid of my identity as a 9-clawed dragon warrior, right? Of course, you must also think that with my innate talent in the martial Dao, I'll never be able to catch up to you. If that's not the case, would you have shown me mercy? What a joke. Duan Lingtian's words had exposed Xiezong's thoughts, causing Xiezong's face to turn green and pale. Now, are you regretting not killing me? When Duan Lingtian saw the changes in Xiezong's expression, he continued to say, "Are you thinking that if you had killed me back then, I wouldn't have grown to this stage today? It's a pity that there's no medicine for regret in this world. Today, I, Duan Lingtian, will fulfill the oath I made to kill you, Xiezong, to avenge Elder Ku, and to avenge the 10 black armored army soldiers of my Azure Cloud Mansion." When Duan Lingtian finished speaking, his voice was as loud as a clap of thunder. At the same time, he revealed his desire for revenge. Regret? Duan Lingtian's words caused Xiezong to regain his senses. After he regained his senses, he was stunned for a moment before he sneered. Duan Lingtian, don't you think you've overestimated yourself? I admit that you're quite strong. However, it's hard to say who's stronger between you and me. Do you think you're certain you can defeat me? In the end, Xiezong sneered again. You'll find out soon enough whether I'm certain I can defeat you or not. Duan Lingtian did not plan to waste his breath on Xiezong. When he spoke again, he made his move. The pair of golden crow wings on his back suddenly flapped. In the next moment, boom, 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 boom. As the sound of explosions reverberated in the air, Duan Lingtian's figure flashed and disappeared from his spot. He charged towards Xiezong at lightning speed. His speed was not inferior to a powerhouse at the 3rd form of the Saint Celestial stage. I'd like to see how strong you, the 2nd strongest prodigy in Zoroastrianism, are. Xiezong was not afraid at all when faced with Duan Lingtian, who was charging at him menacingly. He replied coldly as he made his move. His saint origin that he had been accumulating for a long time suddenly erupted. In the next moment, Xiazong shot up into the sky as though he was riding on a cloud. His speed was not any slower than Duan Lingtian. At this moment, Xiazong had cast an assist-type divine ability and a movement divine ability consecutively. Otherwise, his speed would not have been so fast. Not long ago, the existence that was like an ant in my eyes actually possesses strength that is not inferior to mine. Xiazong's heart sank when he realized Duan Lingtian's speed was not inferior to his. His expression turned grave immediately. After all, Duan Lingtian had not transformed into a 9-clawed dragon warrior yet. Once Duan Lingtian transformed into a 9-clawed dragon warrior, his speed would increase. It would not be difficult for him to surpass Xiazong. Damn it! How did Duan Lingtian master 2 powerful high-grade divine abilities in such a short time? I heard he has mastered 2 other high-grade divine abilities as well. One of them is an offensive divine ability, and the other is a defensive divine ability. His defensive divine ability is the number 1 defensive divine ability in Zoroastrianism, the Black Turtle's Barrier. Xiazong was displeased when he thought about this. As expected of the son of the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 great kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism, although Xiazong has just broken through to the 3rd form of the Saint Celestial stage, in terms of speed, ordinary cultivators at the 3rd form of the Saint Celestial stage, such as Bu Hong, the true disciple of Zoroastrianism, are no match for him. Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised when he saw Xiazong's speed. He could tell Xiazong had cast a high-grade movement divine ability. As for the assist-type divine ability, it should be a medium-grade assist-type divine ability. 9-clawed dragon warrior. Although Duan Lingtian did not plan to use the Jasper Celestial Sword to kill Xiazong, he was not stingy with his other techniques. When he discovered Xiazong's speed was on par with his, he immediately transformed into a 9-clawed dragon warrior. In just a blink of an eye, Duan Lingtian had transformed from a human into a monster with a human head and a dragon's body. This was the form of a 9-clawed dragon warrior. There's no need for me to hide my strength anymore. I'll let Xiazong know what despair is. With this thought in mind, Duan Lingtian no longer held back as he activated his strength as a 9-clawed dragon warrior. At this moment, apart from the Jasper Celestial Sword, Duan Lingtian had used all the techniques he had at his disposal. He no longer held back. Before Duan Lingtian transformed into a 9-clawed dragon warrior, his speed was already on par with Xiazong. However, now that he had transformed into a 9-clawed dragon warrior, Duan Lingtian's speed had increased to another level. He had completely surpassed Xiazong's speed. Xiazong! Duan Lingtian suddenly shouted as he charged towards Xiazong at an even faster speed. He was getting closer and closer to Xiazong. Damn it! After witnessing Duan Lingtian's speed, Xiazong knew he would not be able to gain an advantage in terms of speed. For this reason, he did not continue to move. Instead, he came to a halt. After he came to a halt, he raised his hand and a 7-foot-long spear appeared in his hand. Whoosh! The long spear shook, causing the air to tremble. Ripples began to spread in all directions. Along with the ripples, an extremely sharp aura could be felt. This aura was not something an ordinary saint weapon would possess. 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon, Duan Lingtian exclaimed in surprise. He did not expect Xiazong, a mere Zhuangzi Buddhism elder at the 3rd form of the Saint Celestial stage, would possess 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon. However, when he thought about Xiazong's other identity, he felt relieved. It was not difficult for the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 kings of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, to obtain 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon for his son. I didn't expect you to be able to recognize 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon. Xiazong smirked. He shook the long spear in his hand as terrifying saint origin surged out. At this moment, all the martial tactics, divine abilities, and 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon that Xiazong had mastered exploded. Xiazong attacked with all his might. Boom! When the long spear swept out, a thunderous sound reverberated in the sky. It seemed to drown out all other sounds in the world. Swoosh! Almost at the same time, a short-lived sword cry resonated in the air as a sword ray shot out toward the 1,000 inscription saint spear. When Duan Lingtian made his move, Xie Zong saw a sword ray that flashed for a moment before it entered his eyes. Thousand Inscriptions Saint Sword. With his spiritual eyes, it was easy for Xie Zong to see how extraordinary Duan Lingtian's sword was. When he sensed the aura on it was similar to his Thousand Inscriptions Saint Spear, he knew it was a Thousand Inscriptions Saint Sword. Initially, Xie Zong thought he had the upper hand in terms of saint weapons. However, when he saw Duan Lingtian using the Thousand Inscriptions Saint Sword, his expression changed drastically. Clang! The sound of metal clashing reverberated in the air as the Thousand Inscriptions Saint Sword and the Thousand Inscriptions Saint Spear collided. The energy contained in the two weapons clashed with each other, creating a series of thunderous booms. However, compared to the sound of metal colliding, the sound was like the buzzing of a mosquito. PFFF. After a while, Xie Zong finally fell into a disadvantageous position. He was affected by the aftershock of the collision and flew out like an arrow from a bow. His face was pale, and he spat out a mouthful of black and red blood. The blood splattered in the air. It was dazzling. Chapter 21:15. The battle between Duan Lingtian and Xie Zong happened in the blink of an eye. It was also this lightning-fast exchange that allowed them to determine the winner in just a moment. Duan Lingtian's strength completely crushed Xie Zong. It was an absolute suppression. I haven't used my offensive divine ability yet. When Duan Lingtian's next words entered the ears of Xie Zong, who had been blasted away by the remaining force and was in an extremely sorry state, he was so angry that his body trembled, and he opened his mouth and spat out a large mouthful of blood. Duan Lingtian's words were undoubtedly a huge blow to Xie Zong, making him very angry. Without using any offensive divine ability, he was already forced to such a state. If he used an offensive divine art, wouldn't he be able to kill him in the blink of an eye? Whoosh! After flying for a distance, Xie Zong finally stabilized his sorry figure. At the same time, his pale face turned completely gloomy. When he looked at Duan Lingtian again, his eyes were filled with killing intent. Duan Lingtian, do you really think that you're stronger than me, and that you're going to defeat me today? What? You want to send out a voice transmission jade slip and ask for help? Hearing Xie Zong's words, Duan Lingtian smiled contemptuously, as if he could see through Xie Zong's thoughts. At the same time, he acted as if he didn't care at all. In fact, Duan Lingtian didn't really care. With his strength that completely crushed Xie Zong, even if Xie Zong sent out the sound transmission jade slip, before the person that Xie Zong sent out the request for help received the sound transmission jade slip, he would have already killed Xie Zong. By the time the person Xie Zong had asked for help arrived, he had already disappeared. Don't forget about the minor-major mirror image talisman. At this moment, Duan Lingtian heard Hua Lao's voice. Hua Lao reminded him. After killing Yao Buji, the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance, Duan Lingtian returned to Sin City and studied the Dao talismans in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saintland. Through Hua Lao's confirmation, he also learned that the talisman that had exposed his identity to the leader of the Ground Axe Alliance was the minor-major mirror image talisman. Don't worry. Upon hearing Hua Lao's reminder, Duan Lingtian nodded and said, before I kill him, I'll take out the minor mirror image talisman that might be on him. I'm not in a hurry to kill him. I want to ravage him slowly and let him die in despair again and again. In the end, Duan Lingtian's tone became colder and colder, as if it could make people feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. The enmity of Elder Ku, the enmity of the Black Armored Army, the enmity of stealing the Devil Seal Tablet. He would not let this go. The minor-major mirror image talisman was further divided into the minor mirror image talisman and the major mirror image talisman. Once the person who carried the minor mirror image talisman was killed or activated, or used the minor mirror image talisman, the minor mirror image talisman would record the person's recent experiences to the major mirror image talisman. At that time, as long as the major mirror image talisman was crushed, the person would be able to see the images. Xie Zong, an elder of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, the only son of the Golden Lion King, one of the four kings of the Zhuangzi Buddhism. It was impossible for someone like him to not have a minor mirror image talisman. For this reason, Duan Lingtian had already made up his mind. Before he killed Xie Zong, He would injure him severely and take the minor mirror image talisman from him before he killed him. However, would Duan Lingtian be able to do as he wished? I don't have to look for help. I alone am enough to kill you. Xie Zong smiled coldly in the face of Duan Lingtian's disdain. Whoosh! As soon as Xie Zong finished speaking, he raised his hand and a talisman that shone with a purple light appeared in his hand. Upon closer inspection, one would see it was a Dao talisman. It was not that the Dao talisman was purple, but it looked like a purple Dao talisman when it was surrounded by purple lightning bolts and thunderbolts. As soon as the Dao talisman appeared, the heaven and earth spirit energy in the area was pushed away. In just a blink of an eye, the air in the area seemed to have been sucked away. The violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman. As soon as Xie Zong took out the Dao talisman, Duan Lingtian recognized the Dao talisman immediately. Horror dawned on his face immediately. When he was learning about Dao talismans in Sin City, Duan Lingtian had also learned about the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman. He knew the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman was a powerful offensive Dao talisman that could only be drawn by a quasi-celestial grade Dao talisman master. The violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman was said to be able to kill anyone below the fourth form of the saint celestial stage. It did not matter if it was a human or a saint beast. Those whose cultivation base had not broken through to the fourth form of the saint celestial stage or above would be killed. Even a powerhouse at the fourth form of the saint celestial stage would be severely injured by the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman, even though it would not kill them. Moreover, it would be a life-threatening injury. Usually, only powerhouses at the fifth form of the saint celestial stage or above would be able to withstand the power of the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman. Haha! Xie Zong burst out laughing when he saw the horror on Duan Lingtian's face and heard Duan Lingtian's exclamation. After a long while, he finally stopped laughing. Duan Lingtian, I didn't expect you to recognize the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman, Xie Zong said coldly. Based on his words, it was obvious he was surprised Duan Lingtian, a country bumpkin from the lower province, recognized the Dao talisman from the upper province. The violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman was given to him by his father, the Golden Lion King, one of the four great kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism. Duan Lingtian, you didn't die in vain after being killed by the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman, Xie Zong said again before Duan Lingtian could reply. The moment his words left his mouth, he raised his hand and threw the Dao talisman that was surrounded by purple lightning and thunderbolts at Duan Lingtian. In the next moment, he opened his mouth and was about to shout activate. However, once he shouted the word activate, the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman would transform into a powerful force and sweep toward Duan Lingtian. It would devour and kill Duan Lingtian. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. At this moment, Xie Zong opened his mouth. Whoosh! At this critical moment, before Xie Zong shouted the word activate, the short-lived sound of a sword whistling in the air rang in the air again. This time, another flash of sword light appeared in front of Xie Zong. This sword isn't the Thousand Inscriptions Saint sword. It's even more powerful than the Thousand Inscriptions Saint sword. This was Xie Zong's last thought. As soon as this thought appeared in his mind, a terrifying bloody hole appeared between his brows before he could even react. Spurt! The sound of a sharp sword piercing flesh and bone resonated in the air. The speed of sound was slower than the speed of light after all. Xie Zong, who was spurting blood from the hole between his brows, finally fell to the ground. His mouth remained open, but he could no longer make a sound. Oh no! At this moment, Duan Lingtian, who had killed Xie Zong with the Jasper Celestial Sword, had a slight change of expression on his face. This was because he could clearly sense the Dao talisman's fluctuation on Xie Zong's body. Minor mirror image talisman? Duan Lingtian knew very well that the Dao talisman on Xie Zong's body must have been the minor mirror image talisman when Xie Zong died. Since the minor mirror image talisman had been depleted, it must have transmitted the scene to the major mirror image talisman that was paired with it. The major mirror image talisman must be in the hands of the Golden Lion King, one of the four kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism. It's too late. At this point, Duan Lingtian did not think too much about it, even though he was afraid. He could not afford to be careless in the situation earlier. There was no time for him to retrieve the minor mirror image talisman from Xiezong. If Xiezong had shouted, the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman would have been activated. The force that could kill anyone below the fourth form of the Saint Celestial stage would have swept toward Duan Lingtian. Under such circumstances, even if Duan Lingtian cast the divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier, and used all his defensive techniques, he would not have been able to block the force. He could only barely block the force of the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman by activating the Jasper celestial sword with all his might. However, if he did that, he would be drained of all his strength. Even if he managed to block the force of the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman, he would not be able to fight Xiezong if he was drained of all his strength. Although Duan Lingtian had activated the Jasper celestial sword at the critical moment, he did not wait for Xiezong to activate the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman. Instead, he killed Xiezong before he could activate the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman. The entire process seemed smooth, but it made Duan Lingtian tremble with fear. This was because he had taken a huge risk by doing that. If he had activated the Jasper celestial sword and used the sword-wielding technique from the third stage of the Sovereign Heart Sword to kill Xiezong, the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman would have been activated. At that time, he would have perished together with Xiezong. With this thought in mind, Duan Lingtian sighed in relief. Fortunately, Xiezong was too slow. After Duan Lingtian regained his senses and calmed himself down, he put the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman into his spatial ring. From now on, the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman would be his trump card. It was so powerful that it was comparable to the Jasper celestial sword when he activated it with all his might. Hualao, help me devour his innate spiritual root. At the same time, Duan Lingtian did not forget to contact Hualao and ask him to devour Xiezong's innate spiritual root. As the only son of the Golden Lion King, one of the four great kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism, Xiezong possessed a blue innate spiritual root. Naturally, it was only a light blue innate spiritual root. Although such an innate spiritual root was only a drop in the bucket compared to Duan Lingtian's indigo innate spiritual root, it was still better than nothing. For this reason, Duan Lingtian was delighted after devouring Xiezong's innate spiritual root. I wonder if the Devil Seal tablet is still in his hands. At the same time, Duan Lingtian took Xiezong's spatial ring from Xiezong's corpse and performed ownership claim on it before he looked inside. Chapter 21:16. In Xiezong's spatial ring, there were piles of high-grade saint stones and all kinds of items. Duan Lingtian was dazzled when he saw them. However, Duan Lingtian's eyes were soon attracted by an item in the corner. The Devil Seal tablet. The item that attracted Duan Lingtian's attention was a stone tablet with a missing corner lying quietly in the corner of Xiezong's spatial ring. It was the great saint weapon that he dreamed of obtaining, the Devil Seal tablet. When Duan Lingtian saw the Devil Seal tablet, he was surprised and overjoyed. Xiezong did not give the Devil Seal tablet to the Golden Lion King, one of the four imperial kings of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, when he snatched the Devil Seal tablet from him. This was something he did not expect. I didn't expect the Devil Seal tablet to come back just like that. Duan Lingtian took the Devil Seal tablet out with just a thought in his mind. He reached out and touched it gently. He was so excited that he could not calm down for a long time. After a long while, Duan Lingtian finally regained his senses. At the same time, he put the Devil Seal tablet away. If the Devil clans really invade the Dao Martial Saintland, the Devil Seal tablet will become a nightmare for the Devil clans. Duan Lingtian thought to himself as his eyes shone brightly. After learning about the Land of Exile and the Devil clans, it was very likely that the Devil clans would invade the Dao Martial Saintland again. Duan Lingtian missed the Devil Seal tablet that Xiezong had snatched away. The power that the Devil Seal tablet displayed when facing the Devil clans was much stronger than when facing ordinary Devil cultivators. However, I still hope that it's just a guess. The Devil clans didn't invade the Dao Martial Saintland. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. If the Devil clans really invaded the Dao Martial Saintland, it would mean that the people in the lower province would be plunged into misery and suffering. His family and friends would be affected as well. This was not something he wanted to see. He only hoped that his family, his friends and family, could all live safely and peacefully. It's time to go back. After taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian snapped back to reality. With a lift of his hand, a gush of vast sun, saint energy swept out and turned Xiezong's body into dust before he returned to Sin City. Along the way, Duan Lingtian transformed from a 9-clawed dragon warrior back to his human form. He even put on a new face that he had never seen before. This time, Duan Lingtian's disguised face was not as handsome as before. It looked very ordinary. He was the type that could not be found in a crowd. I'm sure the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 great kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism, knows about Xiezong's death. I'm afraid he's on his way to Sin City right now. It was not difficult for Duan Lingtian to guess. However, he was not worried. He was very confident in his disguise. Even if the Golden Lion King stood in front of him, he would not be able to tell he was the one who killed Xiezong. However, I'm sure the Golden Lion King will be able to figure out my true identity from the images he saw. Duan Lingtian's heart skipped a beat when he thought about this. Previously, after Xiezong snatched the Devil Seal tablet from him and returned to the Zhuangzi Buddhism, he must have mentioned him to his father, the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 great kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism. The Golden Lion King must have known he was a 9-clawed dragon warrior. Moreover, the Golden Lion King would have seen his true appearance through the mirror image talisman. I hope the inter-province transportation formation in the upper province won't be able to send people back to the lower province for a while. Otherwise, the Golden Lion King will definitely vent his anger on my family to avenge his son. At this moment, Duan Lingtian hoped the inter-province transportation formation in the upper province would continue to be ineffective and would not be able to send people back to the lower province for a while. Otherwise, the Golden Lion King would definitely go to the lower province and look for trouble with his family and friends after learning about his background. That was not something he wanted to see. It was just as Duan Lingtian thought. When Xiezong was killed by Duan Lingtian, in the mountains not far from Sin City, in the depths of the Zhuangzi Buddhism's estate, an earth-shattering roar that sounded like a lion's roar resonated in the air. Zonger, apart from anger, there was only anger in this earth-shattering roar. Boom. In the depths of the Zhuangzi Buddhism's estate, a room in a standalone mansion collapsed with a loud bang. Dust filled the air as a tall and muscular figure shot out from the room. The figure belonged to an old man who was 2 meters tall. His white hair stood on end, making him look like a lion's head. Apart from that, he had a pair of thick eyebrows, a pair of eyes that were as large as gongs, and a white beard that covered his face. He hovered in the air as a terrifying aura swept out from his body, causing the air around him to stagnate. This old man was none other than the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism. He was also one of the strongest powerhouses in the Zhuangzi Buddhism. He was a powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial Stage. The 7th form of the Saint Celestial Stage was also known as the Heaven-Defying form. If there were no accidents, one would live as long as heaven and earth. The Golden Lion King was only a title. The Golden Lion King, one of the 4 kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism, had another name, Xiekong Sun. Zo-er. At this moment, Xiekong Sun, the Golden Lion King, who was trembling violently, was looking at his open palm as he muttered to himself. In the center of his palm was a pile of fragments. These were the fragments of his son, Xiezong's, soul pearl after it shattered. This meant his son, Xiezong, had been killed. With a raise of his hand, a Tao talisman appeared in the Golden Lion King's hand. The Tao talisman was a mirror image talisman. It was the major mirror image talisman from the minor major mirror image talisman. This major mirror image talisman was a pair with the minor mirror image talisman that his son, Xiezong, possessed. As soon as Xiekong Sun crushed the major mirror image talisman, a series of images appeared before his eyes. In the scene, his son, Xiezong, appeared, and a violet-clothed young man appeared along with him. Xiekong Sun saw the purple-clad young man's face contorted before it transformed into another face. Based on the shape of his son and the purple-clad young man's lips, Xiekong Sun could roughly deduce what they were talking about. He's the person from the lower province whose Devil Seal tablet was snatched away by my son? At the same time, Siakong Sun had also learned about the identity of the purple-clad young man in the video after he roughly understood the sequence of events. It was none other than the young mansion master of the Debussy subterranean Azure Cloud Mansion, Duan Ling Tian. The grade saint weapon, the Devil Seal Tablet, in his son's hand was taken from Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian? The prodigy from Zoroastrianism who has recently risen to prominence? Soon after, Siakong Sun's expression turned grave. He did not expect the person whose Devil Seal Tablet was snatched away by his son was Duan Ling Tian, the second strongest prodigy from Zoroastrianism who had recently become famous in the Upper Province. Both of them were the same person. He did not expect this at all. Following that, the images before his eyes continued to change. Siakong Sun witnessed how his son was killed even though he had taken out the Z Myrtle Celestial Thunder Talisman. Siakong Sun's expression turned grave immediately. The atmosphere in the surroundings seemed to have frozen at this moment. In the next moment, waves of terrifying killing intent rose from Siakong Sun's body. Flames of hatred could be seen burning in the depths of his eyes. It was as though a prairie fire was about to burst out at any moment. That sword is much more powerful than his 1,000 inscriptions saint's sword. Its speed is so fast that even the mirror image talisman can't capture it. It must be the traceless sword, one of the 10 grade saint weapons on the 10 great saint weapons ranking. Siakong Sun took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He began to recall the images that he had seen earlier. The images seemed to have taken root in his mind and were difficult to erase. For this reason, he was certain the sword Duan Ling Tian had used was extraordinary. He guessed it was the traceless sword, one of the 2 grade saint weapons on the 10 great saint weapons ranking. I should be right. The traceless sword is known as the traceless sword. As Siakong Sun muttered to himself, the killing intent on his body rose even more. The flames of fury in the depths of his eyes grew even more intense. It seemed as though it could burn everything. Zonger, don't worry. I'll go find Duan Ling Tian and kill him to avenge you. When the people in the surroundings heard the commotion and rushed toward Siakong Sun's residence, Siakong Sun's body moved and disappeared into the void. He immediately left the Xuanzа Buddhism. After leaving the Xuanzà Buddhism, he made his way to Sin City. Duan Ling Tian, how dare you kill my son? You'll die for sure. As Siakong Sun traveled, the flames of fury in his heart grew even more intense. It did not seem like it was going to subside at all. In his heart, Siakong Sun thought to himself that Duan Ling Tian from the lower province was already a dead man. In Sin City, Duan Ling Tian, who had guessed the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 kings of Xuanzà Buddhism, would be coming soon, found another inn to stay in after he returned. Hualao, do you have any secret technique that allows you to change your body shape? Duan Ling Tian immediately asked Hualao after he had checked in. Although he could disguise himself without leaving any traces, he could not change his appearance. However, his body shape would not change. If the Golden Lion King from Xuanzà Buddhism remembered his body shape through the major mirror image talisman, it would be possible for the Golden Lion King to recognize him. There were many people with similar body shapes as him. Chapter 21:17. The secret technique to change one's physique is related to the transformation of one's bones. It's the work of a celestial. Elder Hua's calm reply mercilessly extinguished the flame of hope that was ignited in Duan Ling Tian's heart. The meaning behind Elder Hua's words was very simple. Although there were secret techniques to change one's physique, Duan Ling Tian was not capable of mastering it. Only a celestial who had passed the heavenly tribulation and ascended to a Devata realm was capable of such a technique. It seems like I have no choice but to think of another way, Duan Ling Tian thought to himself. Soon after, Duan Ling Tian temporarily left the inn and went to get a few sets of large black robes. They were all black robes with a hood that could completely cover his entire body and completely cover his body. If I wear these robes, let alone the Golden Lion King of Xuanzà Buddhism, even father and mother won't be able to recognize me based on my physique. Duan Ling Tian felt relieved as he looked at the large black robes in his hands. At the same time, Duan Ling Tian's tensed heart finally relaxed. Although Duan Lingtian appeared calm on the surface when he learned Xiezong had used the minor mirror image talisman, he could not help but feel pressured. This pressure came from Xiezong's father, the Golden Lion King, one of the four kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism. The Golden Lion King's cultivation base was at or above the seventh form of the Saint Celestial stage. With his current strength, Duan Lingtian would definitely die if such a person came to look for him. Duan Lingtian finally felt relieved after he had made various preparations. With my disguise and the long robes, even the Golden Lion King of Zhuangzi Buddhism won't be able to recognize me if I'm fully armed. Duan Lingtian felt relieved when he thought of this. After calming down, he recalled the scenes that he had experienced today. He had lured Xiezong out of Sin City and killed him before Xiezong could activate the Violet Myrtle Celestial Thunder Talisman. After Xiezong's death, Duan Lingtian had taken back the Devil Seal tablet that belonged to him. Up until now, Duan Lingtian still felt as though he was dreaming when he recalled all of this. When Xiezong came to the Azure Cloud Mansion, he treated me like an ant with his tyrannical strength. At that time, I was as weak as an ant in front of him. Duan Lingtian recalled the time when Xiezong came to the Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province. At that time, Xiezong was extremely powerful. Under Xiezong's threat, Duan Lingtian had no other choice but to hand. Duan Lingtian's heart was still vivid. Apart from that, after he killed Elder Ku, he went back on his words and said he would kill everyone in the Azure Cloud Mansion apart from those who were close to me. At that time, Duan Lingtian was furious and aggrieved when Xiezong went back on his word. Of course, there was more of a deep sense of helplessness. Even if Xiezong went back on his word, Duan Lingtian did not have the ability to stop Xiezong. He could only secretly swear in his heart that he would treat Xiezong as his mortal enemy. Now that I've come to the upper province after 2 years, I've fulfilled the oath that I secretly swore. After taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian's eyes turned misty as he muttered, Elder Ku, I've already killed Xiezong and avenged you. You can rest in peace now. Also, my 10 brothers from the Black Armored Army, this incompetent young mansion master has also avenged all of you. All of you can rest in peace now. After muttering to himself, Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief as though a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Xiezong, I'm sure you didn't expect me to kill you so easily until the moment you died, right? Unknowingly, Duan Lingtian thought about Xiezong whom he had killed today. Today, he had killed Xiezong with the Jasper Celestial Sword when Xiezong thought he could turn the tables with the Violet Myrtle Celestial Thunder Talisman. From the beginning until the end, Xiezong did not even have time to react before he was killed by Duan Lingtian. It's a pity I didn't let Xiezong die in despair. Xiezong was killed by Duan Lingtian with just one strike. Perhaps he did not feel despair until the moment he died. After all, Xiezong thought he could turn the tables when he took out the Violet Myrtle Celestial Thunder Talisman. When Duan Lingtian thought about this, he felt a wave of pity again. No matter what, he's dead now. The enmity between us can be considered to have come to an end. After he died, not only did he give me the Devil Seal tablet, but he also gave me the Violet Myrtle Celestial Thunder Talisman. Duan Lingtian muttered to himself as he raised his hand and took out the Violet Myrtle Celestial Thunder Talisman. Upon closer inspection, the Violet Myrtle Celestial Thunder Talisman looked like an ordinary Dao talisman. However, with the surrounding purple lightning and thunderbolts, the Taoist talisman appeared extremely extraordinary. It faintly emitted waves of terrifying aura as though it could destroy everything. When Duan Lingtian took out the Violet Myrtle Celestial Thunder Talisman to study it whoosh, a tall figure with terrifying speed entered Sin City and looked for Chu Tanshang, a Zhuangzi Buddhism elder. Chu Tanshang was none other than the Zhuangzi Buddhism elder who was with Xiezong today. He was also the leader of the group of Zhuangzi Buddhism elders who came to Sin City to purchase resources for Zhuangzi Buddhism. Lord Karmapa. Chu Tanshang's expression changed drastically when he saw the Golden Lion King, Xiekong Sun, who was exuding a murderous aura. An ominous feeling rose in his heart. The Golden Lion King had left Zhuangzi Buddhism and come to Sin City. He didn't believe that the Golden Lion King was just here to relax. Slap. Faced with Chu Tanshang's respectful greeting, Xiekong Sun's response was a resounding slap across his face. Half of Chu Tiansheng's face swelled up. He was stunned, but he did not dare to show any dissatisfaction. Did something happen to Xiezong? Chu Tiansheng's heart trembled. At this moment, he could clearly feel the Golden Lion King's towering rage. My son, Xiezong, was lured out of Sin City and killed by this person. Right at this moment, the Golden Lion King, Xiekong Sun, raised his hand, and a blank drawing paper appeared in his hand. Then, he took out a brush and drew a picture of a young man. This is, looking at the portrait that Xiekong Sun drew on the spot, Chu Tiansheng felt that the young man in the portrait looked familiar. He seemed to have seen him somewhere before. This person is the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province. His name is Duan Lingtian. Xiekong Sun's words made Chu Tiansheng realize who he was. The young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province was Duan Lingtian. Chu Tiansheng finally remembered. Duan Lingtian was the lucky person who obtained the Devil Seal Tablet. However, the Devil Seal Tablet was taken away by Elder Xiezong of Zhuangzi Buddhism. So, it's him. At this moment, Chu Tiansheng finally understood why he found the young man's portrait familiar. It was because he had seen the portrait of the young man that had been passed down from the lower province to the upper province. Apart from being the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province, he has another identity. He's also the newly risen second prodigy of Zoroastrianism. Xiekong Sun continued to say coldly, causing Chu Tiansheng to feel as though he had fallen into an ice cave. Gasp! Chu Tiansheng was stunned when he heard Xiekong Sun's words. Then, he gasped and asked in disbelief, Lord Karmapa, are you sure? I've seen the drawing of Duan Lingtian, the Zoroastrianism prodigy, before. He seems different from the person in the drawing. When Duan Lingtian, the Zoroastrianism prodigy, became famous in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saintland, his drawing had also spread among the major forces, including the Zhuangzi Buddhism. Chu Tiansheng had seen the drawing of Duan Lingtian, the second prodigy of Zoroastrianism prodigy. For this reason, he questioned Xiekong Sun. Duan Lingtian knows a disguising secret tactic that allows him to distort the muscles on his face without the help of any external force. It's impossible to detect such a disguise at all. It's impossible to detect him, Xiekong Sun replied coldly when he heard Chu Tiansheng's question. Although Chu Tiansheng had only seen Duan Lingtian's disguise through the mirror image talisman, as a powerhouse at the seventh form of the Saint Celestial stage, the heaven-defying form, who stood at the peak of the Dao Martial Saintland, Chu Tiansheng could see how extraordinary Duan Lingtian's disguising technique was. There's such a disguising technique? Chu Tiansheng was shocked. After he regained his senses, he could not help but sigh. Even the people from the fire worship sect wouldn't have imagined that the second strongest prodigy in the fire worship sect, Duan Lingtian, is the lucky person from the lower province who obtained the Devil Seal Tablet. Make multiple copies of this drawing and distribute them to all the members of the Zhuangzi Buddhism prodigy in Sin City. If you have any information about this person, report it to me immediately. This person is skilled in disguising himself. Even if it's someone with a similar body, report it to me. Xiekong Sun ordered coldly as he looked at Chu Tiansheng calmly. Yes, Chu Tiansheng replied respectfully. Chu Tiansheng replied respectfully. Then, he left with the portrait to look for the other elders of the Black Kshetra sect in Sin City. Although he still had many questions, he did not dare to ask Xiekong Sun any further. I'm afraid Sin City won't be peaceful for a while. Chu Tiansheng thought to himself after he left. Based on the words of the Golden Lion King, the Karmapa of the Zhuangzi Buddhism prodigy, Chu Tiansheng could tell the Golden Lion King was worried about Sin City. Chapter 21:18. It's said that the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman can only be inscribed by a quasi-celestial grade Dao talisman master. In the upper province, quasi-celestial grade Dao talisman masters are as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. Duan Lingtian muttered to himself as he looked at the Dao talisman in his hand that was surrounded by purple lightning and thunderbolts. The Golden Lion King of Zhuangzi Buddhism must have spent a lot of effort to obtain this Dao talisman for his son, Xiezong, to protect himself. It's a pity Xiezong didn't even have the time to activate the Violet Myrtle Celestial Thunder Talisman before he was killed by me. If the Golden Lion King saw what happened through the mirror image talisman, he would be so angry that he would vomit blood, right? Duan Lingtian thought to himself. It was just as Duan Lingtian had expected. Hermf. Somewhere in Sin City. After Chu Tansheng, the elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism, left, the Golden Lion King, Xiekong Sun, who was one of the four kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism, snorted coldly. His expression darkened immediately. The Violet Myrtle Celestial Thunder Talisman actually fell into Duan Lingtian's hands just like that. When Xiekong Sun thought about how the Violet Myrtle Celestial Thunder Talisman that he had painstakingly obtained had fallen into the hands of the person who killed his son, he could not help but feel depressed and aggrieved. He felt as though his lungs were about to explode from anger. Duan Lingtian, no matter where you hide, I, Xiekong Sun, will hunt you down and tear you into pieces to avenge my son. Xiekong Sun muttered to himself as killing intent surged from his body. It shocked the Seckless cultivators who were passing by, afraid they would be caught in the crossfire. During this period of time, many Seckless cultivators were killed on the streets of Sin City. The Seckless cultivators who were killed all shared a common trait. Their physiques were very similar to each other. In fact, they were 80% similar. None of them are Duan Lingtian. The person who killed these rogue cultivators was none other than one of the four great kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism, the Golden Lion King, Xiekong Sun. Although Xiekong Sun had killed many people in Sin City recently, none of the Seckless cultivators at the seventh form of the Saint Celestial stage in Sin City stepped forward to stop him. This puzzled many of the rogue cultivators in the city of Sin. Another person died a few days ago. That Golden Lion King from Zhuangzi Buddhism is too arrogant. Similar voices could be heard everywhere in the city of Sin. After a period of time, a group of loose practitioners in the city of Sin also heard that one of the four great kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism, the Golden Lion King, had come to the city of Sin. It's said that the Golden Lion King is searching for the person who killed his son, Xiezong. As long as it's someone whose body shape is more than 80% similar to the person who killed his son, he'll kill them all. Killing people based on body size? Was the Golden Lion King blind? Don't tell me he only remembers the body size of the person who killed his son, but not the person's appearance? It seems like the person who killed the Golden Lion King's son knows a mysterious disguising technique. He can change his appearance at will, and it's impossible to detect him with divine consciousness. If that's the case, it's normal for the Golden Lion King to do this. I've long heard that the Golden Lion King had a son at an old age and doted on him a lot. It seems like it's true. Similar discussions could be heard everywhere in the city of Sin. Currently, everyone knew that the son of the Golden Lion King, one of the four great kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism, had been killed and that the Golden Lion King had come to seek revenge. Above the clouds in the sky above Sin City, Xiekong Sun, the Golden Lion King, stood with his hands on his back. He was tall and sturdy, and he looked like an iron tower hovering in the air. He was as immovable as a mountain, emitting an oppressive aura. Could it be that he's no longer in Sin City? Xiekong Sun muttered to himself with a frown on his face. During this period of time, the number of people who had died at his hands was close to 100. All of these people had bodies that resembled Duan Lingtian who had killed his son. However, none of them were Duan Lingtian. It's almost time to meet those people. Xiekong Sun's expression darkened when he thought of this. The people he was referring to were Seckless cultivators at the seventh form of the Saint Celestial stage, or above in Sin City. Previously, when Xiekong Sun first arrived in Sin City, he had visited the Seckless cultivators at the seventh form of the Saint Celestial stage, or above in Sin City. After paying a certain price, he obtained their permission. He was allowed to kill Seckless cultivators in Sin City. Naturally, there was a time limit. Xiekong Sun was not allowed to kill indiscriminately. He could only kill people who resembled the person who had killed his son. Currently, the time given to him by those people was almost up. Once the time was up, he would not be able to continue killing innocent people in the city of Sin as he had been doing. Duan Lingtian, do you think you'll be fine just because you're hiding? Xiekong Sun suddenly thought of something. He narrowed his eyes and smirked coldly. On the same day, a piece of shocking news spread throughout Sin City. Hey, have you heard? The person who killed the Golden Lion King's son, Xiezong, is called Duan Lingtian. He's from the lower province. Xiezong had snatched the Devil Seal tablet from him. I've heard of him. He seems to be the young mansion master of the quasi-third-rate force in the lower province, the Azure Cloud Mansion. However, you said he killed Xiezong? How's that possible? That's right. How's that possible? How could someone from the lower province kill Xiezong? I don't care if you believe it or not, I don't. When news spread that the person who killed Xiezong was Duan Lingtian, the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province, the entire Sin City was in an uproar. However, not many people believed Duan Lingtian was capable of killing Xiezong. What a joke. Although that Duan Lingtian is considered a genius in the lower province, he's nothing in the upper province. How could he possess the strength to kill Xiezong in just a year or two? That's impossible. Isn't this news too fake? You can tell it's fake. How boring. If that young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province is capable of killing Xiezong, I'd be ranked first on the Supreme Saint ranking. Half a day had passed, but nobody believed Duan Lingtian, a mere person from the lower province, was capable of killing Xiezong. At this moment, another piece of shocking news spread throughout the entire city of Sin. Duan Lingtian, the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province, joined the Zoroastrianism in just a year or two after arriving in the upper province. He's now the second strongest prodigy in the Zoroastrianism. When the news spread out, it shocked the entire Sin City. Everyone in Sin City was dumbfounded. Duan Lingtian, the second strongest prodigy in the Zoroastrianism, had become famous in the upper province recently. It was to the point where almost everyone knew about him. Even then, nobody connected him to Duan Lingtian, the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province. Almost everyone thought it was just a coincidence that both of them shared the same name. Duan Lingtian, the second strongest prodigy in the Zoroastrianism, is the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province? Is this real? Whether it's the portrait of Duan Lingtian, the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province, or the portrait of Duan Lingtian, the second strongest prodigy in the Zoroastrianism, I've seen both of them. They're not the same person. Don't forget that there's news that the person who killed Xiezong knows how to disguise himself. If the two Duan Lingtian are the same person, it's not surprising that they have different appearances. It's entirely possible for them to disguise themselves. Now that you mention it, I'm reminded of Xiezong's death. If Duan Lingtian, the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province, is really the second strongest prodigy in the Zoroastrianism, with his strength, it's not surprising that he killed Xiezong. Then, does this mean the news is true? The young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province and the second strongest prodigy in the Zoroastrianism are the same person? It's not just someone with the same name? He's the one who killed Xiezong? Although I still find it hard to believe, this seems to be the case. Many of the rogue cultivators in the city of Sin came to a sudden realization as they connected the shocking news one after another. The young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province and the second strongest prodigy in the Zoroastrianism were both Duan Lingtian. If they were really the same person, if that was the case, then everything could be explained. With the strength of Duan Lingtian, the second strongest prodigy in the Zoroastrianism, it was not difficult for him to kill Xiezong. A commotion broke out in Sin City immediately. I can't believe Duan Lingtian, the second strongest prodigy in the Zoroastrianism, is the same person as the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province. I'm afraid Xiezong didn't expect this even in his wildest dreams. That's right. 1 or 2 years ago, the person who was like an ant in front of Xiezong and had his super saint weapon, the Devil Seal tablet, snatched away by Xiezong, appeared in the upper province in just 1 or 2 years. Not only did he become the second strongest prodigy in the Zoroastrianism, but he even killed Xiezong to avenge himself. For someone from the lower province to have such achievements in just 1 or 2 years after coming to the upper province, how monstrous is Duan Lingtian's innate talent? Don't tell me. His innate spiritual root is the legendary violet innate spiritual root? In Sin City, whether it was the Sectless cultivators or the people from the various forces, all of them were shocked by Duan Lingtian's innate talent in the martial Tao. Duan Lingtian can be considered as avenging Xiezong by killing him. However, I wonder if the Devil Seal Tablet was in Xiezong's hands at that time. If it was, the Devil Seal Tablet would have been returned to its rightful owner by now. I don't think it's possible for Xiezong to have the Devil Seal Tablet. After all, it's a Super Saint weapon that's ranked on the 10 Great Saint Weapons ranking. When he brought it back to the Zhuangzi Buddhism, he must have passed it to his father, the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 great kings of the Zhuangzi Buddhism. I think so too. At some point, many people's attention had shifted to the Super Saint weapon, the Devil Seal Tablet. After all, the enmity between Elder Xiezong of the Zhuangzi Buddhism and Duan Lingtian from the lower province was all because of the Devil Seal Tablet. Chapter 21:19. News after news swept through Sin City, causing the people in Sin City to temporarily forget about the devil clans from the land of exile that might have invaded the lower province. Renan, naturally, the people in Sin City were more curious about the demonic tablet. He wondered if the Devil Seal Tablet that Xiezong had snatched from Duan Lingtian was still with him. If the Devil Seal Tablet was in his hands, Duan Lingtian would have taken back the Devil Seal Tablet that originally belonged to him by killing him. If it was not in his possession, it must be in the hands of the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 kings of the Zhuangzi Buddhism. Since the Golden Lion King was his father, he could only hand the Devil Seal Tablet to the Golden Lion King. While everyone's attention was on the Super Saint weapon, the Devil Seal Tablet, another shocking piece of news swept through Sin City like a hurricane. The Devil Seal Tablet is in Xiezong's possession? Moreover, when Duan Lingtian killed Xiezong, the sword he used is one of the 10 great Super Saint weapons on the 10 Great Saint Weapons ranking, the Traceless Sword. In other words, not only did Duan Lingtian take back the Devil Seal Tablet that belonged to him, but he also obtained another Super Saint weapon. Moreover, it's an offensive Super Saint weapon. When news of Duan Lingtian possessing 2 Super Saint weapons spread, it caused an uproar in Sin City. There were only 10 Super Saint weapons in the entire Dao Martial Saint land. However, at this moment, someone had obtained 2 Super Saint weapons. As long as it was a normal person, they would definitely be jealous. Why? Why? What does Duan Lingtian do to possess 2 Super Saint weapons at once? I can't accept this. I can't accept this. If Duan Lingtian was in front of me, I'd want to kill him and snatch the 2 Super Saint weapons from him. Me too. In the city of Sin, similar voices could be heard everywhere and did not stop for a long time. One person had obtained 2 Super Saint weapons. Let alone ordinary people in Sin City, even sectless cultivators at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, or above who stood at the peak of Sin City would be envious. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sound of wind breaking rang out as a total of 5 figures flew out from various parts of the city of Sin. Their speed was so fast that most of the rogue cultivators in the city of Sin could not see them with their naked eyes. Surprisingly, they were all heading in the same direction. It was also the temporary residence of one of the 4 kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism, the Golden Lion King, one of the Zhuangzi Buddhism's mansions in the city of Sin. Golden Lion King. Old Xie. Thank you, Dharmaraja. 5 figures arrived in the sky above the mansion at almost the same time. After they arrived, they looked at each other, and before they even had time to greet each other, they were already shouting loudly. They were looking down at the mansion beneath their feet. It was obvious they were shouting for someone in the mansion. Among the 5 people, there was an old man, an old woman, a middle-aged man, a young man, and a beautiful woman. The person they were shouting for was none other than one of the 4 kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism, the Golden Lion King. Xiekong Sun, the Golden Lion King, rose into the air as soon as the 5 people finished speaking. He arrived in front of the 5 people in just a blink of an eye. Gentlemen, Xiekong Sun did not dare to be negligent in front of the 5 people in front of him. This was because these 5 people were sectless cultivators at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, or above in Sin City. Naturally, there were more than 5 sectless cultivators at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, or above in Sin City. These 5 people had come because they had heard about Duan Lingtian obtaining 2 Super Saint weapons. They were certain the Golden Lion King was from the Golden Lion King. They were certain the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 kings of Zhuangzi Buddhism, was the source of the news. It was precisely because of this that they had come here. Humph, old Xie, stop pretending. Don't you know why we're here? The middle-aged man among the 5 people snorted and said with a frown. The other 4 people looked at the Golden Lion King, Xie Kongsun, in unison. Their eyes were filled with anticipation. Gentlemen, I can guarantee that the Devil Seal tablet is with my son, Xiezong. However, I'm not 100% sure about the traceless sword. After all, I've only heard of the traceless sword, but I've never seen it before. Xie Kongsun knew this was not the time to keep them in suspense, so he went straight to the point. However, the mirror image of Duan Lingtian killing my son was sent to me through the mirror image talisman. At that time, my son had already taken out the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman and was prepared to kill Duan Lingtian with it. Xie Kongsun's voice turned solemn when he reached the end of his sentence. Violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman? Old Xie, you really dote on your son. You even obtained a violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman for him. The middle-aged man raised an eyebrow and said in surprise, I only have one son. Naturally, I won't be stingy with him. Xie Kongsun said confidently. At this very moment, his tone was low and his expression was incomparably gloomy. It was so gloomy that it seemed as if water could drip out of it. His only son had died just like that. Immediately, the fury hidden in his heart rose without reservation, causing his disheveled hair to seem like numerous sharp needles, just like the spikes of a hedgehog. At this moment, Xie Kongsun looked like an enraged lion. Apart from that, his white hair had a tinge of gold, making him look like a golden lion. It was obvious this was how he got his title, the Golden Lion King. Just as my son was about to kill Duan Lingtian with the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman, Duan Lingtian made his move. As soon as he made his move, he used the sword-wielding technique and killed my son with a terrifying sword. Xie Kongsun continued to say, from the beginning until the end, not only did my son not have time to activate the violet myrtle celestial thunder talisman, but he didn't even have time to react. The sword was so fast that it seemed to have disappeared without a trace. 1,000 inscription saint sword was nothing compared to a piece of scrap metal. Xie Kongsun's voice was filled with conviction when he spoke. It was as though he was 100% certain of this. Traceless sword. The young man among the 5 could not help but exclaim when he heard Xie Kongsun's words. His eyes lit up like the stars in the night sky. Based on what great karmic King Xie has said, the sword Duan Lingtian used must be the traceless sword. The other 4 nodded in agreement. Thank you, great karmic king. Thank you. The young man took the lead to express his gratitude to Xie Kongsun. After that, he disappeared like a gust of wind before Xie Kongsun's eyes. The other 4 people followed suit and left as well. The 5 of them came quickly and left quickly, coming and going like the wind. For a time, Xie Kongsun was the only one left in the sky above the huge mansion. Duan Lingtian, from today onward, since you possess 2 Super Saint weapons, you're destined to become public enemy number 1. At the same time, a sneer appeared on Xie Kongsun's face. I'd like to see if you're willing to give up on the 2 Super Saint weapons. If you're unwilling to give them up, you'll be hunted down by the entire upper province. Human nature was greedy. If news of Duan Lingtian possessing 2 coveted Super Saint weapons spread out, it would definitely attract the attention of everyone in the upper province. At that time, Duan Lingtian would become the target of everyone in the upper province. As the saying went, a man's wealth is his own ruin. Duan Lingtian, who possessed 2 Super Saint weapons, was destined to be targeted by many powerhouses in the upper province. As the news spread out, the entire Sin City began to search for Duan Lingtian. Naturally, these people's target was the 2 Super Saint weapons in Duan Lingtian's possession. That Golden Lion King is really ruthless. With this, it'll be difficult for me to establish myself in the upper province. It was more than a month later when Duan Lingtian found out about this. At this time, his cultivation base had successfully broken through to the intermediate quintessential saint stage. However, the joy he felt from breaking through to the intermediate quintessential saint stage vanished when he learned about this news. Unless I'm willing to give up on the Devil Seal tablet, I'll become the target of everyone in the upper province before I'm strong enough to use the Devil Seal tablet. Duan Lingtian was well aware of this as well. For this reason, he said the Golden Lion King from Zhuangzi Buddhism was ruthless. Apart from that, everyone now knows that apart from being the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province, I'm also the second strongest prodigy of Zoroastrianism. I'm afraid it won't take long before news of me, the second strongest prodigy of Zoroastrianism, the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion in the lower province, and the fact that I possess 2 super saint weapons will spread to Zoroastrianism. It seems like I can't return to Zoroastrianism before I'm strong enough to rescue Kerr and her mother. Otherwise, I'll become the target of everyone in the Zoroastrianism hall. The temptation of a super saint weapon was too great. Even the sect leader of Zoroastrianism would be tempted by it. Currently, there were rumors that he possessed 2 super saint weapons, the Devil Seal tablet and the Traceless sword. That Golden Lion King must have mistaken my Jasper Celestial sword for the Traceless sword. It's easy to deal with the Traceless sword. As long as I swear on the lightning penalty oath that I've never obtained the Traceless sword, I don't have to worry about people not believing me. However, the Devil Seal tablet is really in my possession. It's impossible for me to swear on the lightning penalty oath that I've never obtained it. Duan Lingtian knew this very well. If he returned to Zoroastrianism, many high-ranking Zoroastrianism officials would definitely covet the Devil Seal tablet in his possession. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.